Liren and Gukesh are tied in the World Chess Championship match after the first 3 games. Yesterday was a rest day, and that was much needed for everyone after the drama in Game 3.
Look at the
Is this a blunder by Ding?
The next 3 or 4 moves are very important. If he finds the best moves, I firmly believe he'll win.
Oh, now Ding has taken the pawn.
Wow, is that a big mistake? Ding
3
intercepts.
seconds for Ding. 2 seconds for Ding. Did he lose on time?
He loses on time.
He loses on time.
Horrible time management.
Apologies for the screaming, but that was necessary. In Game 3, Ding Liren, he lost on time. And a warm welcome to all of you to the Take studio, where we are ready to follow Game 4 in the World Chess Championship match with our experts here in the studio. Grandmaster Jon Ludvig Hammer, are you feeling good now after a rest day and after all that drama?
Actually, we talked about this earlier. I don't want any rest days. I want to just keep going all the time, and I feel like my rhythm has been broken a little bit by this rest day. So I'm eager to get back into it with these early morning games, at least our time.
I know. And next to Jon Ludvig is Maud, who is doing all the text commentary in the Take app, and that was hectic with Game 3 with Ding losing on time. Did you have time to send out like push notifications with all that happening?
We were able to say that Ding is very low on time, and then he lost a couple of seconds later, really. So the people who checked into the game then just saw, oh my gosh, he's losing on time. And then they would ask themselves, what happened? What happened? He lost on time.
He lost on time. I think that's just crazy. And he lost on time with still like 4 moves to make in that game, Jon Ludvig. Is this basically unheard of in World Chess Championship history to not handle your time?
I don't think it's unheard of, but it's certainly unusual. And it's something Ding cannot allow to happen once more. He was in a very troublesome losing position at the end. So the fact that he ran out of time didn't really affect the final result. Gukesh would have won regardless of how much time Ding had. But if he had played quicker, he wouldn't need to be this sad going from the venue. Whereas Gukesh obviously now gets a boost of confidence winning this game and tying the score.
Yeah, Gukesh definitely feeling confident after some really good play there in Game 3. But at the press conference, he kept his cool.
I mean, it's always like a bit exciting when your opponent is so low on time, and also, I mean, when you get a winning position, you generally get a bit excited. So it was there, but I think I had my emotions under control. I'm quite happy with. I mean, also the last 2 days I was happy with my play. Today was even better. I feel good at the board, and yeah, today I just managed to outplay my opponent, which is always very nice.
I think we just have to remind everyone that this guy is 18 years old. He's fighting to become the youngest world chess champion in history. 18 years old. And this is how he handles the pressure, the attention, playing bad chess, playing some great chess, winning. It's quite impressive, Jon Ludvig.
It's very, very impressive. And he's so composed, but he's also so mature and sometimes articulate in his answers. And on the press conference 2 days ago, he did get some questions about Magnus's comments, where Magnus thought that Gukesh had really misplayed that first game of the World Championship.
Magnus said in our recap, Gukesh didn't make a single good decision. Is what Magnus said, and he was confronted
and being
with
faced with that, Gukesh is like, yeah, no, Magnus is a great champion, and you know he's got a point, but it's normal to have some extra nerves. Like he coped with the question with amazing poise, and now he's got the win and he's got the momentum in the match. So I'm very impressed by him.
Yeah. Maud is getting ready to send out the notification that Game 4 is starting in 5 minutes. what should we expect from this game? I'm so curious to see what version of Ding we will see. Will his confidence be broken? Gukesh, of course, but mostly Ding maybe. What do you think, Maud? What kind of Ding Liren will turn up today?
It's very hard to say because in his previous white game, I felt like Ding didn't really show any ambition. He reached a very interesting position that Magnus said that he would love to play and try to continue to put pressure on Gukesh in this position, but Ding just went back and forth with his knight and agreed to a draw. So I think that Ding's ambition, we still haven't really seen it. He managed to attack when he was given the chance, but he hasn't really tried to create those chances himself. So it's going to be very interesting today with the white pieces. Usually a big advantage in these kinds of World Championship matches where this is the best opportunity he has to win. But then he usually wins against Gukesh with the black pieces. So I don't know if he'll choose the same opening that he did in game 2 where he got a very promising position but didn't go for the win.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be super exciting to see if game 4 as well will end up with a winner. So far, 2 out of 3 games have ended up with a decided result. Gukesh and Ding Liren are tied at 1.5 points after the first 3 games. And we are ready to kick off game 4. Ding Liren has made comebacks before. He did that in the 2023 World Chess Championship match. He made 3 comebacks after losing games against Jan Nepomniachtchi to eventually win the match. So, what do you expect from Ding today?
Well, I don't think you can make a comeback if you're not behind.
Oh, I mean, comeback after losing.
He did just lose, but it is still tied in the match. And we talked a bit about the psychology of this. What?
He lost on time. It's such a bad
way no, it was definitely a bad way to lose and a bad game overall from Ding. But at the same time, Hikaru spoke a bit about this, I believe, that if Ding had been given the option to be tied after 3 games, where 2 of those games he had the black pieces, he would be reasonably happy. So it's not that the result in the match is bad for Ding, it's just that the way we got here is not optimal. But I genuinely believe that Ding will manage to not think too much about how we got here, but only think about the fact that we're here, we're tied, and he has the white pieces. So I don't think it needs to be a disaster for him yet. I think Gukesh is easy to predict today. The fact that he played a solid opening, focusing on trying not to lose, even when he was down in the match score, definitely suggests that he will use that same strategy when the score is tied. So the excitement here revolves around Ding and whether or not he will change his first move. And we remember that Gukesh, he chose to start with his king's pawn and then try his queen's pawn because he's exploring what preparation Ding has made for the match, and he's doing it early so that he can use his later games in the match to attack Ding where he believes he has the best chance of creating problems. And I think that's a very interesting strategy, and I also think that Ding may try the same thing. So I'm actually expecting Ding to change his first move today, just like Gukesh did yesterday. And whereas Ding went king's pawn in the second game, and Gukesh went king's pawn in the first game, Gukesh going queen's pawn in game 3. And I think Ding might do the same thing, that they're kind of copying each other in both playing the king's pawn and queen's pawn.
And it can also be helpful to kind of see what has your opponent prepared against these different options. And then maybe your ambition isn't necessarily to win, but just to figure out what opening has Gukesh prepared against the king's pawn. So, okay, Jonavik, I'm taking note of your prediction, and then we'll soon see if you're right.
I'm watching the footage from Singapore where the match is being played. Someone made an opening move for Ding. That was from someone from, I think, the Chinese Federation. And then we see Vishy Anand standing next to Gukesh. He made an opening move for Gukesh with the black pieces. The clock has been started. Gukesh clicked it with the black pieces. We are waiting to see what Ding Liren will play with the white pieces in game 4. And here we go. It's a knight as far as I can see.
Yeah, the knight move. So Ding does change up his first move, but it's not the queen pawn. Instead, he starts out moving his knight into the center of the board. A very flexible move because you're trying to see what plan your opponent uses before choosing where to put your own pawns in the middle. Gukesh immediately 2 steps forward with his central pawn. Very solid play. And here, Ding goes with his pawn in front of his king, 1 step forward. And this looks very slow. It looks like he's not trying to be aggressive with his pawns. But let me tell you, this is quite venomous. Because one of the points is that you delay pushing your next pawn 2 steps forward, because sometimes you want to have your bishop pointing through the middle of the board without white's pawn restricting the bishop's influence. And there are some variations within this start that can become really, really spicy. But that also depends on how how Gukesh reacts to this start. So once again, Ding is not playing one of the like very super well known. I'm trying to play something that has been played many times before, which the chess engines have as their main recommendation. Instead, Ding is trying to take the game out into the a bit uncharted territory reasonably early on, having Gukesh think on his own. And here we see Gukesh does go out with his knight. So he's kind of doing that same strategy as Ding was doing, that moving the knight out is generally something you want to do anyway. So you do it pretty early on. And now Ding goes pawn to b3. This is a big surprise to me. Because here, normally, you go with the next pawn 2 steps forward to try and challenge in towards the middle, with the bishop having protected that pawn previously on the previous move. But pawn to b3, this is what I was actually pointing out earlier, that one of the points of not pushing the central pawn 2 steps forward is that you want to have your bishop pointing through the middle of the board without the pawn in the central pawn interrupting that influence. So very interesting start to the game. And this pawn to e3 move, that is like unusual, but definitely not unheard of. But this, what is known as a fianchetto move, the bishop on the side of the board is known as a fianchetto. It's Italian. I don't really know what it means. But the idea is that a bishop can actually be better on the side of the board than in the middle of the board. Normally, we have our knights, we want to have them in towards the middle because that's where they can have the greatest influence. The same applies for the bishops. We want the bishops to influence the center of the board, but what's interesting is that in order for the bishop to point towards the center, it actually has to be on the edge of the board. So the bishop is almost in the corner. On the edge is usually a bad thing. But it doesn't matter where the bishop itself is standing. It matters where it's pointing. And here the bishop is pointing towards the middle of the board, and as such has a pretty optimized positioning.
What's the name of this opening?
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to say, like, we have this opening now, but... And I also am waiting for some statistics from you.
I don't know if this opening has a name.
What? We can name it?
Well, I mean, this night out is technically the Reti opening. But then sometimes things evolve into other things. But I'm not familiar if this has a name.
Well, can you at least
I'll
check?
try to look it up.
Can you also check if other players at this level have played it before?
I mean, people have played everything in over the course of time.
All right.
But it's definitely unusual. I'll tell you that.
Funkut in our YouTube chat is asking Nimso Larsen.
It definitely resembles the Larsen opening.
Hassan is also saying Nimso Larsen opening.
Yeah. So, and of course, Larsen is one of the great Scandinavian players.
Danish?
The Danish player, who before Magnus, I think, was the only Scandinavian, well, Nordic, to be in the top 5 players in the world. So, yeah, I guess now, because normally Larsen's opening is with pawn, this fianchetto move on move 1. So I'm just wondering if it has a different name when you wait.
Someone also saying it's not, it's Reti. Queen's Indian attack is suggested.
The thing about openings like this is that sometimes someone has come up with a name for it, but it's not really, top players such as myself, if I may. We care more about what moves are good rather than what we should name it. Okay, so interesting. If I go back a little bit, this pawn to e3 was very uncommon. And it's only been played in about 3-4% of games. And then after the knight goes out, and we have this fianchetto move. This move is also reasonably uncommon. So we were already in a situation that was in 3% of games from move 2. But then this b3 move was only played about 5% within the 3%.
How many games in total had this position?
355.
Okay, so that's not a lot.
Not a lot when you consider it's move 3 in chess.
Yeah.
Normally at this stage we're in the tens of thousands.
But we have another move. So what's happening now when the bishop moves out?
Yeah. Gukesh moves his bishop out. This is the bishop that we will recognize as the less than optimal piece from the previous game where Ding had the black pieces. One of the advantages of moving this bishop out now is that if you remember from Wednesday's game, one of the problems with moving the bishop out was that Gukesh could then bring his queen to attack a pawn that the bishop had left unprotected on this left side of the board. But now that the pawn has gone to the square where Gukesh put his queen last time around, it's more difficult to punish this developing move. And now Ding moves his bishop, and I thought he was going to move it one step to control in towards the middle, but instead Gukesh
He played his bishop to e2 first, I think.
Oh, okay. So bishop one step forward. So the idea behind bishop one step forward is just getting the bishop out and getting ready to castle the king. One of Ding's ideas here is that if you move the pawn in front of your own king one step forward, then you prevent your bishop from retreating, which means that now Ding would have been able to move his knight out to the side of the board and capture Black's bishop that had no escape. So therefore, that explains why Gukesh played pawn to h6. You will also remember in the previous game, Gukesh had the black pieces. He had a bishop, not here, but over here. And then he played pawn one step forward on this side of the board in order to create an escape for the bishop because of a knight that was going to go to the edge and attack.
So it's the same, just opposite sides.
It's exactly the same as the first game where Ding had the white pieces, just like you said, Kaya, the opposite side of the board.
Interesting.
So the pawn forward creates an escape for the bishop. Now he's ready to go pawn one step forward in the middle, next move. And that's why Ding moves his bishop 2 steps out on the side of the board. He's pointing in towards the undeveloped black bishop. And the idea is that if now Gukesh plays the move that he was preparing all along, moving his pawn in front of the king 1 step forward, opening up between the 2 bishops, then the white bishop would capture blacks. And if you recapture with a rook or if you recapture with a king, regardless of which piece you use to capture this bishop, you will abandon your right to castle the king. And that's why it's unlikely that Gukesh will move his pawn 1 step forward because he's scared of losing his castling rights.
Mm-hmm. Well, so we have been a little bit surprised with the opening because it was a little bit hard to figure out the name of it, but we have some really cool suggestions in the chat. I think both Bad Aussie and Disgraceful Coder suggested the Ding Dong opening. And that brings me to the question, with this opening...
Yeah, because we cannot call it a Larsen when he puts his bishop all the way out here. The Larsen opening would be an acceptable name if the bishop came on the long diagonal to point in towards the center squares. But when the bishop goes all the way to the side, I'm not familiar enough with this situation to really give a good assessment. What I will say is that I actually sat next to someone playing like this.
Oh.
Just a couple of weeks ago. So apparently, this is...
Maybe we need to message that person. But I wanted to ask, if we're going to call it the Ding Dong opening...
Well, we're not calling it that.
Well, if we are calling it the Ding Dong opening...
We are not calling it anything with dong.
Maybe we are. Because I want to ask you this question. With the white pieces... Is Ding Liren knocking on Gukesh's door? Can we see his ambition already out of the opening now?
Well, his ambition, we can see that he's trying to create something entirely fresh, making Gukesh think for himself.
Mm-hmm. So
it's not a super ambitious opening. He has not put any of his pawns in the center of the board, but it's ambitious in the sense that it's in a way playing like this is pretty confident because you're saying, I don't need to put immediate pressure on you in order to win games. I will just play a quiet line that isn't very popular at the highest level, requiring you to think for yourself at an early stage. And then I will outplay you with my greater understanding of the game. So I think it's just it's not ambitious in the traditional sense, but it is showcasing some confidence that in a maneuvering game he can be the better player.
Very interesting. We also have another question in chat. Someone asking, what is the purple time? The purple time is the clock running right now. So Ding has now spent 5.5 minutes on his move 5. They do have 2 hours each for the first 40 moves in the games. No increment. 2 hours to reach move 41. That was the problem for Ding in game 3. He wasn't able to reach move 41 with his 2 hours. And when they do reach move 41, if they reach move 41, they get an additional 30 minutes plus 30 seconds increment after each and every move. But 2 hours to reach move 41. And Gukesh has been playing very fast so far in this game. Ding has been playing very fast. I'm messing this up. Ding has been playing very fast so far with the white pieces. Gukesh is the one thinking. Gukesh is the one who's been spending now 6.5 minutes on move 5. He is down to 1 hour and 46 minutes left to reach move 41.
Can you check Wikipedia maybe?
Oh,
We're seeing here that some people are calling it the Zuckertort opening.
I saw that too.
And now we're trying to see. This is the first one that Junodvik hasn't said immediately no.
Yeah.
So that's
That
promising.
might be the answer.
Well, I'm in Norwegian Wikipedia, so that's no good.
So Zuckertort was a famous player in the late 1800s, I think.
It starts with the knight to f3. And sure enough, you do play... Well, this is not good. No, this is just the continuations.
Yeah, that was...
This is very difficult to give a name. Very uncommon.
In the encyclopedia of chess openings, the Zuckertort is classified as A04 to A09 on one step forward in front of his king. So he has decided that since he has the knight protecting the bishop, now he would welcome the trade between these, because the trade would not lead to him losing the right to castle his king. So he opens up, invites a trade between the bishops. Ding, he does capture the bishop. Now, the only way to be allowed to castle is by capturing back with the knight. Because the castling rules are that if you have moved your king or your rook previously, you don't get to castle. So the knight is making the task of recapturing the bishop. And now, finally, Ding is pushing one of his pawns 2 steps forward to put some pressure in towards the black center.
We are back. Hey, everyone. Thanks for your patience. We had some trouble with the internet, but we are back. So, Junodvik, what's been happening since the knight moved out? Go back a little bit.
We've had a trade. So in this situation, when Gukesh was getting ready to have his knight protect the bishop, Ding chose not to push any of his pawns forward in the middle like I thought he was going to do. Instead, he just simply castled his king. Gukesh wanted to be solid, pushed his pawn 1 step forward in front of his king, inviting a trade between these 2 bishops, and Ding said, yes, I will trade your bishop, because if you now move your king or your rook, you're not going to be allowed to castle in the future. But this is why Gukesh played his knight into the middle earlier, because the knight got the responsibility of taking out Ding's bishop so that the knight can move once again later on, and then you can do the castling move afterwards. So it's a bit time consuming with the knight, but it was difficult to get that black bishop into the game in any other way. And Ding has since played his pawn 2 steps forward. And finally, Ding is putting some pawns in the middle of the board. He delayed that for such a long time, but now that he's started doing it, I think he's going to play the next pawn and the next pawn. Like, I think Ding is going to go all out now with his pawns on this queen's side of the board. So once he was very, very cautious with his pawns to begin with, but now that he's started, I think all of these pawns on the queen's side is going to rush forward. And frankly, I'm kind of liking what Ding is doing, and it's definitely getting Gukesh to think a bit.
Also just uploaded a picture in the app of the players thinking, and I really love this angle of the players, like, between their own pieces, because they have these little cameras like at the front of the board.
Yeah.
So like going through the pieces of the opponent.
That's cool.
So it's
I'm going to go in and check that. So we are struggling a little bit with internet today. So please pay attention to Jon Ludvig's physical board. That's right now.
And the app. The app is also up to date.
And of course the app. Hey, you guys, you need to download Take to get notifications, to follow the text commentary. It's great. Like Magnus said this the other day also. Like it's great for him. He loves to play golf. He's not able to follow the games from start to finish every single game. He can get notified when he really needs to go in and check out what's happening. It's Friday, but you might be at work, you might be at school. Maybe you can follow the entire game. It's great with the app. You can go in and check out at all times what's happening. And so in the app, it's correct. And on Jon Ludvig's board, it's correct. So let's pay attention to that.
I know Maud is a bit nervous about Magnus reading her text comment.
Oh,
No, I was more worried now that I was like, what if I notify Magnus at the wrong time? And he's just like, this is nothing. Why would I be notified now? But
You're scared of interrupting Magnus's golf game?
yeah, if it's
so you really need to think hard about it. Is this a good time?
especially if we write like, ooh, a mystery opening, and then Magnus will be like, no, that's just the Zuckertorg opening.
Magnus is like the rest of us. He's a good player, so he cares more about what's good moves than what the openings are called.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good.
Magnus sometimes brags that there are basic concepts that he doesn't know the name of, or doesn't really understand how it works.
If he doesn't know what castling means, I've defined that word in our commentary. So he can click on the word castling. I doubt that he'll do that.
That exact thing, I think he's familiar with.
And let me just update you on the clock time. So Ding is in the move right now. He's been thinking for 4.5 minutes. And Gukesh, he has 1 hour and 41 minutes left to reach move 41. So Ding has spent a little bit less time than Gukesh so far.
But both players playing pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look at this move Gukesh made. He moved his knight back where it came from. So this guy just came from the this square to capture the white bishop, but now it moves back where it came from because it needs to move out of the way in order for Gukesh to be able to castle his king. But I'm actually surprised by this move because it enables Ding to create a long-term imbalance in the position. I was expecting Gukesh to go with his pawn one step forward, because then if the white pawn trades for blacks in the middle of the board, then the black pawn we just moved forward will recapture, and we will have the situation where black has 2 pawns on this side, but so does white, and then 5 pawns each on the other side. And notice how both players have pawns in the exact same files. Mm-hmm. So that means that the pawn formation is pretty similar for both. However, after moving his knight back into the middle, now Ding has the opportunity to make a trade with his pawn in the center, where Gukesh, obviously, he wants to take back and he wants to keep a pawn in the middle. But here, Ding would have 2 pawns on his queen's side of the board, working together, standing next to one another. And then he would have 5 pawns in the center and king side, whereas Gukesh would have 4 pawns on the queen side, and 3 pawns on the king's side. Mm-hmm. And that is a very clear imbalance in how the pawns operate, and also means that the players are going to have very different plans moving forward. In fact, this trade between the pawns in the middle is so famous that it has its own name. The pawn formation ensuing after the bishop's pawn captures in towards the middle, and the king's pawn takes back, creating this 4 and 3 versus 3 and 5, 2 and 5. This is called the Karlsbad pawn structure, named after Karlsbad in, I believe that's in the Czech Republic currently. And so we have a pawn formation in chess that has its own name, and it's named after a place in the Czech Republic where they played quite a few tournaments in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Okay. Jon Ludvig, we have a question to you from the chat from Amar. He's asking, Sir Hammer, is there any advantage for Ding in this opening?
Yes, he's a little bit better. But I also think that he could benefit from this trade between the pawns in the middle, because it would make the position a bit more imbalanced. But for now, we can note that Ding has castled his king, whereas Gukesh has not. Mm-hmm. So Ding is maybe a little bit ahead in getting his pieces into the game. That being said, to be fair, the Ding's knight has not gotten into the game. So if Ding gets his knight out and Gukesh castles, we're pretty even on who's gotten their pieces out quicker. It's also worth noting that Gukesh has his pawns on the light squares, but he also has a bishop moving on the light squares. So often when you only have one bishop remaining, you want that bishop to control the opposite colored squares compared to your central pawns, because then they are complementing each other. One of them is controlling the light squares, and the other is controlling the dark squares. Whereas now, since Gukesh has both the bishop and his central pawns on the light squares, he doesn't necessarily have that great dark squared control. On the other hand, Ding, he's going to move his pawn 2 steps forward at some point in the future, is my suspicion. And then we can very clearly see that his most middle pawns are on the dark squares, whereas he also, like Gukesh, has a light squared bishop. And this kind of strategic reasoning is part of why Ding made the effort to trade off the bishops that move on the dark squares, because that would be very slightly favorable to him.
Okay.
We're down to only having one game that has had this situation previously.
This is one of my favorite moments.
I'm getting ready to use the novelty flair on our app.
I like the novelty moment.
Yeah.
And I also like when Jon Ludvig tells us who's played that game.
Yeah, it was a game between Wesley So and Anish Giri.
2 top players.
In 2021 Meltwater Tour Final.
Woohoo!
Which, of course, you are a big part of, because you were the broadcast director of that tour. And
you said what year?
2021.
Okay, the first year of the Champions Chess Tour.
And Anish Giri, with the black pieces, won the game.
Ooh. Okay.
And what did Wesley then choose to play as
Wesley chose to move his knight into the game, which is a very sensible move. Just getting your pieces into play. But I gotta say, I'm kind of intrigued by this pawn takes pawn opportunity, which creates the imbalance in how the pawns are placed for both players. So if I'm going to make a guess right now, I would say Ding will play a novelty, and he will capture the black pawn.
He's been thinking for over 12 minutes. Do you think he has seen this game between Wesley and Anish from 2021?
No, I don't think Ding has seen that game, but Ding has certainly seen or he should have seen this position in his preparation.
Okay.
It is Ding who has played in a very uncommon manner, whereas Gukesh has consistently played the most solid option at every juncture. So honestly, I'm surprised by the fact that Ding is still thinking, because Gukesh has not done anything extraordinary. If anything, it's extraordinary that he's done so many ordinary things. And when you do so many standard classic moves like Gukesh has, then Ding should still be in his pre-game preparation.
And so, Maud, you are waiting to see if Ding will make the move that Jon Ludvig just showed with the capture of the pawn.
Yes.
And that will be a novelty, and that is what you will put in the app.
Absolutely. And then we might also, we're not going to abuse the notifications either, because we've already sent out one. But there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here in the opening, I would say. I thought maybe beforehand that Ding was not going to have that many ambitions, but I actually feel like the way he's playing now shows that, like Jon Ludvig said, it was kind of to show that he will kind of outplay Gukesh later. He's not trying to get this enormous advantage in the beginning, but he's trying to create a few long-term imbalances. So like these bishops that Jon Ludvig was describing, that Gukesh's bishop might get worse towards the end of the game. So I think this has been an interesting development. I would say this is more ambition from Ding than I was expecting.
Nice. We like ambition. Ding's been thinking now for almost 15 minutes. So we are looking for, will he play a novelty or will he move his knight out like Wesley So then? Wesley So had the white pieces in that game, did in 2021. I see people now talking about this game. And we did see Wesley So in Singapore before the match started. He was, I think he was watching the freestyle match with Magnus and Fabiano Caruana. He was in Singapore. Is that a sign maybe he is a second of one of these players?
That would be very, very surprising to me, because Wesley is a player with ambition for the title himself, and he's had training camps with Magnus in the past, right? Like he's been there, done that. So while we were speculating that some of the Indian teenagers might be working together because they appreciate the experience of what being close to the World Championship match, because they themselves might experience this in the future, Ding already has experience. So already has experience. So I feel like for him, helping out in a World Championship match would not be the same benefit as it would some of the younger, more inexperienced players. It cannot be ruled out, though, of course. I also do want to mention that Wesley is originally from the Philippines. And of course, in Asia, distances are... there's big distances, but in relative scale, Singapore is not too far away from the Philippines.
Yeah, I once traveled between those two countries. We are having some technical issues with showing you the actual board from Singapore. We can put up the board that we have here in the studio. This is the current situation in the game. Game 4 in the World Chess Championship match between Ding and Gukesh. Ding is playing with the white pieces, and he has been thinking now for 17 minutes on this next move.
It's very surprising when you're considering that, as Jon Ludvig said, Gukesh has played very natural moves, and Ding is the one who chose to play in this way. Either, is this another case of him kind of forgetting his preparation, do you think? Or is it that he's kind of making a difficult choice now for what direction to take the game in?
I feel like he's poorly prepared. Because like I said, this should have been part of what he studied before the game. I don't think Ding would misremember. I feel like Ding maybe just hadn't studied this as extensively as you maybe would going into a World Championship match. And part of the reason why I'm saying that is based on Ding's own comments. When Ding speaks, I mean, he's a soft-spoken guy, but the thing about soft-spoken people is that they're very credible. You believe everything that they say. And Ding said, I only started preparing for the match 3 weeks ago. And this was a shocking comment. Hikaru also brought it up when he visited us yesterday, that if this is true, that's sensational. And I may add to that, I would say it's unprofessional not to put more of an emphasis and more of an effort into one of the biggest moments of your chess career. But if it's true, and I feel like a lot of the chess players are very honest.
Oh, 100%.
In their comments.
Yes, that's what I
And-
love about chess.
Yeah, Kaya, who has been a reporter, she will know this, and maybe this is a sign of that that he's truthful,
Yeah.
and that they didn't actually put that much work into the openings for the match.
Yeah. And I mean, it might be a good idea for Ding, since he has been struggling with enjoying playing chess, with some mental struggles after becoming world champion. The most important thing for him to get ready for this match was to rest, to not play chess. But I bet his team with Richard Rapport is one of the only one we know in his team. He's probably been working.
And Nihua was
Aha.
revealed today.
So we know 2 seconds that Ding is using. They've been working for way longer, probably, on these openings.
But it's also interesting that Magnus said that one of the reasons he didn't want to play
And we
the
have a
World
move.
Championship anymore. Oh, we actually have a
He
move.
plays the knight. He plays the same move that Wesley So played in 2021. So still
No novelty yet.
following. Still after 9 moves following that game from 2021.
Oh, and Gukesh responds immediately. He castles.
Yeah, the castling move was very obvious at this point because everything Gukesh had done seemed to suggest that he wanted to get his king away from the middle of the board, especially the fact that Gukesh had moved his knight back and forth to open up the connection between the black king and a rook. So now a new moment where I think if Ding was going to make the trade between the pawns in the middle, he would have done so on the previous move. So I feel like the fact that he moved his knight out is a sign that he doesn't want this trade between the pawns. And so what else could he do instead then? Well, he could follow Wesley So's example by pushing his pawn in the middle 2 steps forward.
But now, actually, by kind of an interesting turn of events, we've now reached a situation where there are 2 games that have been in this position. They've just reached them in different ways. And actually, this is a game between 2 Norwegian very good players, Grandmaster Johan Salomon and International Master Christian Suvik Holm. That was also played in 2021.
Really?
Yeah. Suddenly, we have more games.
Oh, that's very strange. But obviously, yeah. So they reached it in just a different manner. But so this now has been seen 3 times in history then, in total. Or 2 times with...
Mine says 2. What does yours say, Jon Ludvig?
So 2 times with the Wesley So and Ishigiri game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 times in history is... And did they both continue in the same way after this? Or did
Both games, black has won, which is interesting.
Oh.
That's not
Both
promising for
games,
Ding.
Black has won.
One of the games,
is
the
fine.
trade between the pawns happened, and in the other game, pawn 2 steps forward in the middle. And those seem to be the main options to me. And given that Ding had the option to trade between the pawns in the middle on the previous move and chose not to do so, I think he's going to follow Wesley So's example by pushing the pawn 2 steps forward.
Neither of those are the top move by the computer. Would you like to know what is the top move for white with the computer, Jan Ludvig?
Pawn to b4, maybe?
No, it's not a pawn at all.
It's the hand and brain time.
Yeah. It's a rook.
Well, I mean, if it's a rook, if you move this rook, then, it's not doing anything because of the bishop and the pawn standing in the way. And if you move this rook, well, then you can just be captured by the bishop. So by method of elimination, it has to be rook to c1 that you're talking about, Kaya.
That's the top computer move, but is it a human move at all? Is it something...
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Okay, so you don't expect this is something Ding
No.
will play. Well, interesting. He thought for 18 minutes on his previous move, Ding, and now he's been thinking for 3.5 minutes. He has less time on the clock now than Gukesh. No drama yet, though.
In my opinion, one of the things Ding should try to make happen is pushing this pawn forward. And in general, just be very aggressive with his pawns on this queen's side of the board. So I would like him to either trade in the middle and then push the pawn up. But that's unlikely, seeing as how he didn't make the trade earlier. So alternately, he could move the pawn up immediately. But in either case, I think he should try to advance on the side of the board and be the aggressor with his 2 pawns on that side.
Interesting. Ding Liren is looking up and then back down to the board. He is thinking about now his next move, spending time again. He needs to be careful. He has lost now 1 game on time, not managing his clock good enough. But is this a wise time to spend some time to figure out the path in this game, Jan Ludvig?
Well, this is what we've kind of become accustomed to. That after the opening, they start spending crazy amounts of time.
He takes in the middle.
Wow. Well, I wanted that, but I don't understand why he didn't do it on the previous move.
Would that have mattered, though?
Maybe not. I don't know. Okay, I like this plan from Ding. I'm a fan. And this was also played in the game between the Norwegians.
And now he played b4, Jan Ludvig, the move that you wanted to play.
So first, the white pawn captured the black pawn. The black pawn takes out the white pawn, creates this imbalance with the 2 pawns on one side and 5 pawns on the other. The reason I point out these 2 and 5 is because when the pawns are when they're all standing next to one another, that's an important factor in understanding which pawns are working together. So it's 2 and 5 versus 3 and 4, an imbalance. And like Maud said, now Ding is pushing his pawn forward on the queen's side.
And Gukesh has also pushed a pawn.
And this is what I wanted from Ding. And Gukesh goes pawn to c6. So Gukesh creates a pawn chain, is the technical term, where the pawns are connected in that they defend each other up the board.
Are we still in known territory, or have we gotten ourselves a completely...
Now we have 3 games.
Now we have 3 games. But did we have 0 games during that?
No, we didn't. There was always a game. It was just the games were changing.
Yeah, so apparently this formation, this way of putting your pieces is unusual. but we always end up in a situation that, well, technically mod. So what can often happen is that there can be more than one novelty in a game. Because if no one played a certain move in the current position, then that is technically a novelty, even if it goes into a position that has been played before.
Okay.
Is that too tricky of a concept to explain, or can
No, I
are
agree.
you
I'm
willing to do like 3 novelties in a row?
Yeah, but I mean,
Because here, this game is no longer there.
Oh,
You're
okay.
moving the knight into the middle.
so moving the pawn to b4 had never happened in that situation.
Yeah. So in this position, moving the
Okay.
pawns one step forward, that was a new move. No one had done that in this current situation. But when the pawn moved forward, it entered other games that had the same situation but had arrived at it in a different way.
Yeah, we'll call that a novelty.
Yeah. But
I wrote in the
but
app
that-
now.
It also means that you'll make another novelty later in the game.
That is true.
Ooh,
And
it's
then
a
you're
novelty.
going to have some explaining to do
Yeah.
to the audience how there can be more than one novelty.
Yeah.
I wrote now that this was a novelty, that Ding advanced on the queen side. He placed his pawn on a dark square, which works together with his light squared bishop, as we've been discussing earlier, and that this had never been played in this exact situation. And then I'm going to add as a comment, however, this exact position has been reached in 3 games previously.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. And we were talking about the 2. So 3 games now in total with the 2 other games. Are we left?
No, so now we're out. We're out of
Of
the
those
So.
two other
The
games.
So and Giri is out.
Uh-huh.
The Norwegian guys is out. They did something differently. But now we're on. So I'm actually having to rely on Maud here. There's an Argentinian and a British, one of the best British girls, and some guys I've never heard of who sound Turkish. The
Yeah,
Kivans is a Turkish name.
What was the results in those games?
All 3 games ended in a draw.
All 3? Okay. Wow. So the 2 other games we were following up until a certain point ended up with black winning. It is Black Friday, so maybe that was a little bit of a sign for Gukesh playing with the black pieces. But now, is the game more drawish now then?
No, it's less drawish. It's less drawish because Ding made the trade between the pawns in the middle, which has created an imbalance in how the pawns are positioned, which kind of tends towards more interesting. Are you allowed to say that? Interesting play. It's kind of nagging on playing with symmetrical pawn situations, but. I think this game is shaping up to be very interesting.
Cool. We like that. Ding is thinking again. 4.5 minutes now on his move 12. Gukesh still has almost 1 hour and 40 minutes left to reach move 41. But for Ding, the clock is ticking. He needs to keep an eye on that today, Ding. He does not want to get into big time trouble again.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to see a Ding that had like prepared and was very quick in the opening today, because he's had such a bad experience with the clock so far in this match. But I would say he's kind of just trusting that he'll manage even with little time. But it's also interesting to note that he did lose 1 game on time against Nepomniachtchi in 2022.
Yes.
Yeah, I just had to calculate what year that was. He did lose 1 on time there, kind of similar situation where he
2023.
would have lost anyways.
Yeah.
But this is something that has happened to Ding, and I feel like it's weird that he doesn't kind of change his methods when that clearly isn't working.
Interesting. Thinking now. 5 almost 6 minutes now. Ding Liren. And what are we expecting now? You know, like, what are some options here for Ding?
I'm expecting him to move his pawns forward. So I would expect either pawn to d4, or pushing the pawn forward in the center, or pushing the pawn forward on the side of the board. But what both of these moves have in common is that basically you're preparing to really go aggressively with your pawns on this this queen side. One thing I will note is that I also think the move queen forward is
That's been played
could be
before.
worthwhile playing.
That has been played before in some of these games, in 2 of the 3 games.
Yeah, so queen, pawn, or pawn. I don't really see any other options beyond those.
And maybe that was also kind of the point with this move, that you were making some space for the queen to enter the game in that way.
Yeah. Primarily, the intention of this pawn is to push it even further forward and interrupt the Gukesh pawns that right now are 3 pawns protecting each other. And what Ding is hoping to happen is to push further forward, take out one of the 2 pawns, 3 pawns, so that there are only 2 pawns remaining. And the fewer pawns you have as the part of a pawn chain, watching out for each other, the easier it is for the opponent, in this case Ding, to go after and manage to capture them. And the thing about pawns that are on the same diagonal like this is that if you first lose one, then very often you lose the other one as well, because those 2 were reliant on each other.
We are having some internet troubles today. That's why you're not seeing the live board here in our stream right now. We are working on it really hard. I bet too many people are in shopping on Black Friday, making the internet fall down here in Oslo. But we are following the game on Jon Ludvig's physical board here in the Take studio, and we have screens here in the studio, so we will update you at all times about what's happening. We apologize for these technical issues, and we thank all of you for hanging out with us for the World Chess Championship match game 4.
And of course, in the app, we are up to date. So
Yes, and the app is up to date.
I'm happy to have that as like my source of truth. That's what's going on in the game right now.
Take a look at the app, you guys. That is up to date.
But Ding is really spending a lot of time. I just don't understand that he's not stressed about this, that he isn't worried that spending this much time in the opening will cost him again.
Is it a sign of his confidence?
I don't know if it's a sign that he's kind of looking for opportunities, even in this situation, that he knows that Jon Ludvig has already said, like, this is a good start by Ding, that he's created some ways of at least continuing the game in an ambitious way, maybe developing his queen like we were talking about and trying to create some weaknesses on Gukesh's queen side. I think that's an interesting way to continue. And I feel like he wouldn't be thinking this long if he was just aiming at a quick draw. Oh, but he's played something completely different than what you've been talking about, Jon Ludvig. He's played his knight into the middle of the board.
Yeah, interesting. So now we're back to only one other game having played like this. And this knight into the middle of the board was played by the Argentinian grandmaster, Diego Flores. And the knight then placing itself where I thought Ding was going to want to have his pawn. But the good thing about this move is that it forces Gukesh's bishop to hide out in the corner, which is the reason Gukesh made this pawn move on the side of the board very early on, so that the bishop could escape down there afterwards. But now, this opens up completely new possibilities for Ding. And now I'm wondering, maybe Ding I thought he was going to push his pawns forward on the queen's side of the board. But now, with this development, he might try to push the pawns forward on the king's side instead. And he could even advance the pawn in front of his own king 2 steps forward and really launch an attack with these pawns. And then the queen could come over here, and the pawns would they would be very powerful in their advances towards the black king. Okay, obviously I gave Ding 5 moves in a row here.
I wrote now that, like you were saying, Ludovic, is it correct to summarize that? Ding is staying flexible and unpredictable?
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. I'm really curious whether he will continue advancing his pawns, or which side, rather. Which side of the board will he continue advancing his pawns? Because right now, that is completely up in the air. In fact, I'm kind of liking this advance with the pawns on the king's side. And this bishop is not really doing much, which is part of Ding's strategy. The bishop is in the corner, and it's pointing very nicely through the center of the board. So it's not obvious it's a bad positioning of the bishop because it is controlling a lot of squares. The problem is there are no white pieces on any of these squares. So it's basically shooting into nothing.
But why is Gukesh thinking about this move for 3 minutes? I mean, he can only go down to the corner like you're showing here, or he can put it 1 square less.
Yeah, but if you go 1 square, only 1 square back, this could tempt Ding into pushing his pawn forward and attack the bishop once again.
Okay, so why is Gukesh thinking?
Well, based on what we've seen from them so far, they've really enjoyed their thinking time.
Okay, so I should prepare for him playing his bishop to h7.
Yes.
And if he plays his bishop to g6, I'm going to write that this... Now Ding might be tempted to threaten that bishop further with his pawn.
And you would also need to point out that that would be a novelty, and then you would have to explain how there are 2 novelties in
I already did. I
game.
prepared people for that. I wrote that, however, the situation has been reached in 3 games through another series of moves. This means we will have several novelties in the game. But bishop to h7, as we expected, Gukesh retreats the bishop.
And now suddenly we have 2 games instead of 1. Because now the Norwegians are back, I think.
Norwegians are back. I can check here. Yeah, they're back.
Oh no, there's 3 moves.
And now we're out.
3 guys.
The queen moved to b3, and now we have a new position. Never reached before. So here we have a novelty. The queen goes to b3. Kind of a combination of different plans we've been talking about.
Yeah, because you were saying moving the queen out here was common on the previous move, but Ding wanted to chase Black's bishop into the corner before moving his queen. But this also gives us a lot of information. Because now my thought that he was going to rush the pawns forward in front of his own king, that is definitely not happening now. Because that would have been dependent on the queen coming over here to protect the area in front of the white king, having gone away with the pawns that had as their primary purpose to defend the king. Someone else would need to come in to take over that defensive responsibility. So with the queen moving out on the queen's side of the board, this is clearly showcasing that Ding wants to focus his attention, pushing his pawns forward over here.
And now I've highlighted in our analysis board in the app that he might be threatening to go with this pawn here, as you were describing earlier, Vic? Do you think that's the main idea of putting the queen here?
No.
Okay.
The thing is, even though the queen points in towards the pawn in the middle, I think it would be questionable for Ding to continue with his pawn further up, even if the intention is good. The intention of this move is threatening black's pawn, trying to get the pawn to move so that the knight can capture the most forward pawn, now protected by the white queen. However, because Ding has chosen a strategy where he put his knight in the middle of the board, anytime he now advances this queenside pawn, then Gukesh will be able to avoid the trade between the pawns, but also attack white's knight. So, in fact, now this white pawn here, this one needs to stay put, because this pawn's primary assignment now has stopped being advancing further forward. Now the primary purpose of this pawn is to control this square to prevent the black pawn from being able to come forward and attack the white knight. So if Ding is pushing his pawns forward on this side, like I expect him to, I think it's more going to revolve around the pawn on the edge of the board, going as far forward as possible. And then maybe the queen will go one step back, and then maybe the knight will try to maneuver itself. Notice how all of white's pieces are trying to use the dark squares on the board. And that is because Gukesh has a lack of dark squared control right now, because both his bishop and his central pawns are moving on the light squares, and Gukesh is lacking something to control the dark squares, which is enabling the white knight in the middle to be very powerfully placed. I'm really liking Ding's position here. I in fact think I said it actually as it was happening, but I think Ding should have made the trade between the pawns even earlier, because the pawn formation now is turning out in Ding's favor. And I'm not sure it was correct by Gukesh to allow this pawn transformation to happen.
And now we see that we have the board up here again, and it's showing that it's balanced still. So, but we still hear some careful optimism from you, Ludwig.
I'm not even that careful. I would say Ding it's quite clear that he is he got the better position from the opening. I definitely, he has the best placed piece with the knight in the center of the board. The bishop in the corner is pointing nicely, but it's not actually threatening anything. And I feel like everything is strategically in Ding's favor. So I think he is at least, but in a game between humans, he has he can be even happier with the situation than what the chess engine is.
What is Gukesh supposed to do while Ding is advancing on the queen side, maybe jumping around with his knights, trying to get them to a good square? What is Gukesh going to be trying to do in this game?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Gukesh needs actually to go with his pawn 2 steps forward on the side of the board. The idea is to put pressure on the white pawn, and if the white pawn captures blacks, then the white pawn no longer has control of that square we were talking about, and maybe then even the black knight could jump there and get a really, really nice placement. So I think part of Ding's problem now moving forward is that when the pawn moves 2 steps forward on the side, Ding is going to need to use his pawn one step forward to just protect its buddy so that if there is a trade, a new white pawn can take over the responsibility of controlling the square, preventing black's knight from getting into the game. But the consequence of this is that if Gukesh just plays a different move, like the rook into the center where he has none of his own pawns blocking the rook, now it would be troublesome for Ding to move his pawn 2 steps forward, even though that's the plan I said he would like to do. The problem with this is that then Gukesh would respond with his pawn challenging White's pawn at a moment where Ding is unable to have the pawns protecting one another because the pawn on the side of the board has actually advanced past the protecting square. So I don't really like Gukesh's position, but it's difficult for Ding to make progress because his most obvious plan has a flaw. That being said, Ding can move his rook over and he can move his queen back, both of which are good preparatory moves and increasing control of the dark squares on this queen side of the board. So I'm liking Ding's position. I would be happy to play this as white myself.
So I'm checking the app, and the recommended move from the computer is to play the knight into the center of the board. Not that one.
Not that one?
Nope. The knight to e4. And try to, I guess, trade the knights and also put pressure on the pawn on d2.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a
controversial decision, in my opinion.
It's a what?
Controversial decision.
Tell that to the computer.
Yeah, no, I would if it could speak.
Studio, and I've been seeing people in the chat talking about these pieces that we have next to the chessboard, and I'm gonna just see if I can fix it because people are really annoyed that they're not perfect. Is it possible this belongs here?
I think we tried that. It was hard to figure out which one is the best way.
Can they really tell that? Oh, but they can see on the close-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because on the far camera, you can't really tell that.
Okay, so on this side, it's perfect.
Yeah, that one is very good.
It's actually worse now. No, I'm sorry.
If you get one of those tools, you can try and like take off a millimeter.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Seriously?
We're
Are
gonna
you going to
bring
do it
in-
yourself? Are you going to get power tools into the studio? Because I'm not sure you have the insurance for that.
That's a good point. But we're in Norway now, remember? So it's not that. So what do you think? This side, which one should we have on? Let's do like this. Okay, people. We are trying to fix it. Just like we have fixed the internet.
Yay.
We are back. Thank you for your patience. The live board is back.
And those using the app, of course, didn't even notice there were any troubles.
Exactly.
But that's the point of a behind-the-scenes stream.
You also get all the problems. I'm going to post on my Twitter, actually, a picture from our control room. We have a small studio, and we also have a small control room. And people have been complaining about all the... I'm going to clean up this mess, but the mess in the control room, you guys, that's next level. I'm going to post a picture on my Twitter about that. What's happening in the game?
I'm liking Ding's position.
You are liking it for Ding. So right now, if there was a poll in the app and it said, what will be the result in the game? Would you press Ding win?
No.
You would press draw.
Yeah, but I mean, at the World Championship level, it's quite rare that a game doesn't end in a draw. In fact, us having more wins than draws so far is very, very rare. We've been treated to a very special start to this match. And also, I think once again, for the fourth time in 4 attempts, I believe the white player has succeeded in gaining an advantage, which is also quite rare, and of course relates to the fact that we've had so many games decided with a winner so far. The fact that the white player is able, has the ability and preparation to put pressure on the opponent from an early stage. That being said, Ding has actually used more time than Gukesh so far. But he's, I would argue, spent it wisely in order to get into this this good situation. Maud, this queen move, was that a novelty?
Yeah, it was,
Again?
and I've written that in the app.
So what did this Diego guy play?
The Diego guy played. Sorry. He played his knight to b3.
Yeah, so
Played his knight to the same square.
yeah, they both moved something to this square, but he moved the knight away from the middle. Ding wants to retain his knight in the middle and moves his queen up instead.
And the Norwegian Grandmaster Jon Solomon also played his knight to that square. So that was really what people were doing in this situation.
Yeah.
But we did discuss this queen move earlier, so it didn't really come as a surprise.
No, I don't think so. And also, in the game between So and Anish, even though we're far away from the moves they played in their game, we saw a similar plan with the white queen placing itself on the normal fianchetto square. Often we have a bishop on this square pointing in through the center of the board. But the thing is, the queen also has the diagonal capabilities of a bishop. So the queen may also fianchetto itself in that it could be pointing down through the center of the board, even if it has a placement out on towards the corner.
Okay. Gukesh is thinking now for almost 15 minutes.
Because we've seen that it's a little bit hard for Gukesh to really find. Ding's plan is a bit more straightforward, and Jon Ludvig has suggested very many moves that he can play in kind of a whatever order he wants. He's just going to try to get pieces over to the queen side, position his queen maybe in this fianchetto position, and then advance with his pawn on the very edge of the board. But then for Gukesh, it's kind of hard to come up with something. You suggested this rook move here, Jon Ludvig.
Well,
That seems okay. It seems
yeah,
natural.
no, it seems okay, but at the same time, it's not really doing anything. It's improving the positioning of the rook, but it doesn't really have a plan beyond that. It's one of those one move plans, and preferably here, Gukesh should come up with a 3 or 4 move plan, because that's what he can expect from Ding. Ding will reasonably quickly play these moves with the rook over, the queen back, and the pawn forward. This is Ding's plan. And then Gukesh should play something to, well, preferably counter that plan. But worst case, probably he cannot counter it because all of the moves are happening within white's half. So you can't really stop your opponent from playing on their own side of the board. So then maybe Gukesh needs to figure out a plan of his own.
Well, you talk about the rooks, and rooks, right? They will often be looking for open lines. And right now there are no open lines, but 2 lines where there's only 1 pawn. There's
Yeah.
2.
So when there
which
are
open line?
When there are 2 pawns on the file, it's called a closed file. When there's 1 pawn, it's a semi-open file. And then if I took this one off the board, this would be an open file for the rook, which means no pawns standing in the way. And both players have different semi-open files. So here, this is part of why I was suggesting the rook move one step, right? Because here the rook has no black pawns standing in its path, but then Ding would respond with the same idea with his rook pointing down, where there are no white pawns standing in the rook's path. And frankly, the white rook is doing a much better job than the black rook in this instance. So yeah, I'm not sure this rook move from Gukesh is important enough to prioritize at this stage of the game.
Have you discussed the top move of the computer?
We have.
Yeah, but I kind of just dismissed it.
Yeah,
didn't I?
Unity said that's a controversial opinion.
Okay,
Or-
is that a computer move and not a human move then? The knight moving into the center.
No, I mean the knight wanting to trade, I guess, is fine. For me, the big question is when the knight when Ding captures the knight that moved forward in the center, are you planning to recapture with your bishop? In which case, you're moving your bishop an awful lot, and you're also moving it into an exposed square in the center of the board where Ding could very easily just kick you back on the next move. Or are you planning to take with a pawn? And I assume if you're going to move your knight forward, your plan is to take with a pawn, because then you get your pawn inside your opponent's
That's
hand.
very nice.
It looks terrible.
Oh,
Because well, it looks nice in some respects, but it looks bad in others.
okay. Well, in what way does it look bad? I think it looks super nice.
Because now the pawn is standing in the way of the bishop. So the bishop that already wasn't doing that much in the corner of the board, at least it was pointing out towards, white's half of the
But it's
board and through
protecting
the
the
center.
pawn.
It's protecting the pawn, but it's doing nothing else. You have demoted the bishop from being an influencer to being a...
I'm excited now. What,
Yeah, no, this metaphor can go somewhere if I
Yeah.
just find the right word.
From an influencer to
A D-list celebrity who's beyond their peak.
who's not getting into the party.
Age. Very
A-list
good.
Celebrity.
Age
An age celebrity
list age.
who's no longer
file
invited
celebrity.
to the big celebrity parties.
Yeah.
The pawn is now blocking its entrance. I like that.
So yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. And honestly, also, I don't think Ding would mind the trade between the knights, because I said that his plan is to go rook here and point down. But the very obvious problem with that plan is that the knight is still standing in the way of the rook. So I don't think Ding minds if the knights are taken off the board, because then that would increase the influence of his rook. So yeah, I don't like this this knight forward.
Gukesh has now been thinking for 20 minutes on move 13. We are super excited to see what his decision will be, what will be the move. We can see the players here from our studio watching the screen, sitting across from each other now on the board in Singapore, both with their head in their hands, looking at the position. We can see Gukesh, his foot is shaking. Is he nervous, or is he just in deep concentration? I bet the second one. And everyone at home, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you do enjoy our behind-the-scenes stream, then please give us a thumbs up and give us a like. And you can see both Maud and me. We're wearing some nice sweaters today. Mine says, oh, and maybe we can get the camera from behind. It says, don't play nice, play chess. And Maud says, beyond the board. So merch is coming, you guys. Merch is coming. So why don't you, with both like the sweaters, and we have the stickers on my screen. That's going to come out as well as merch that you can buy. So let us know if there's something you would like to
Oh.
have in your closet. Oh, do we have a move?
We got the move, and the move went to e5, which is something you also suggested at a point, Jonadik, when you were trying to guess what the computer was saying.
Yeah, no, I said, Maud said move the knight into the center. And I was like, okay, so obviously this is the move you're talking about, the move up. Because I thought going for the trade was silly. Yeah. On the other hand, with the knight moving forward now, the knight can no longer go to this square and attack the queen, which could be important. It's no longer controlling this square. I'm not super impressed by that one either. And now, if Ding wants to, he can move his pawn 2 steps forward and attack the knight, after which the knight would need to just go back. But then again, we said that if Ding had the plan of moving his pawns up in front of his own king, then he would want to have his queen over here. If he was going to do that. So maybe Gukesh is trying to provoke Ding into moving forward. And then... Actually, if moving forward, can you even go into the heart of White's position? I would be very skeptical about moving this knight into White's half, especially considering what happened in the previous game, where Ding moved his bishop too far into enemy territory, and the bishop ended up never making its way back. So yeah, it's a bit of a mysterious move in that I don't understand where the knight is going next, should it be attacked.
I've already commented several of the moves now that are a part of Ding's plan. So the rook to c1, the queen perhaps moving to b2.
The queen is not moving to b2 anymore.
Okay, so we'll not scratch that one. And then the pawn.
The reason for why queen back is no longer a thing is because one of the concerns with the queen going back was that this black knight could sometimes attack the queen. But now that the knight has chosen a different path than moving to Ding Gukesh's right and instead moving in towards the middle, now the knight is pointing together with the bishop against this square, the d3 square. And this means that the queen is going to want to have some protection towards that square. So the queen now needs to well, technically the knight is still in the way, but the queen wants to have some influence over here.
Okay, so I'm scratching that one.
Yeah.
But then, also interestingly, we still have that plan to advance the pawn along the edge of the board.
Yes.
And that's also what the computer is saying in the take app.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? Because my concern about making this pawn move on the side of the board was that black was going to respond with their pawn in the same fashion, challenging white's pawn at a moment where white was not able to give immediate support. But the thing is, now this white pawn doesn't need support because it can capture black's pawn without being nervous that the black knight will attack the white queen because the black knight has chosen a different direction. So, yeah, I'm liking this pawn 2 steps forward on the side of the board. That has been part of our discussion for some time now. And Gukesh has created a favorable moment for Ding to execute the plan.
I have to say, the knights in this game, wow, it's amazing. And we have an awesome comment from Flamingo Dog. We have the Kentucky Derby on the board. The knights are racing. I love that comment. Very cool.
It's very symmetrical how the knights are positioned. Both players have one knight in the center of the board, and then one knight standing in support of the first knight. And then they're all on the same diagonal.
It's very cool. It's very cool to see the knights like that.
And with the knights, you can also see kind of the player's priorities. Ding is playing on this side of the board, whereas Gukesh is focusing his attention on the opposite side because that's where they have their knights.
Another comment from Cortium 9000. How about I get some laser pointers for the board? Like, you would be like a Harvard professor, Jon Ludvig, just pointing with the laser. Should move here and here. And then you could lean back in your new IKEA chair and just use the laser instead.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I like it.
Okay, so we prepared a comment if he advances along the edge of the board. And we've also prepared a comment if he moves his rook to the semi-open C file that you were talking about earlier. Is there anything else that Ding could do?
Well,
It's
I
this
mean,
chasing
he could
of the
attack
knight.
the knight and just say, I'm going to kick you back. And what did you really accomplish by going back and forth?
Well, if you have any move suggestions out there, then go ahead and post them in the chat. I'll try to ask Jon Ludvig about one or a few of them while we wait for Ding to make his move. He's been thinking now for 7 minutes on this move, number 14. We can see on the images from Singapore that Gukesh is in deep thought, even if it is Ding in the move. So I'm guessing this is a critical moment in the game when both of them are sitting there and not sort of taking the time to chill out a little bit in their private resting areas.
Well, that has been their trend so far in the game, right? That they're all very often choosing to remain at the board, even when they could have gone into their break rooms.
Mm-hmm. Scott Hussey is asking H3.
Pawn to H3 is
Are
a
we in the
possibility. That would control one of the squares the two knights are pointing in towards. But the thing is, I don't really see what the knight would accomplish on that square. So I don't feel the need to prevent something that isn't really dangerous. For instance, if I move my pawn 2 steps forward, attacking the knight, and if the knight then it goes to the square that the pawn h3 would prevent, I don't necessarily want to prevent them going here, because now, after the pawn moves forward, the knight is trapped. So sometimes the threat of going with the pawn there is stronger than actually doing it. This is
That's an interesting point of view.
Classic chess saying, the threat is stronger than its execution.
I've been working with chess for 10 years. I never heard that. That's new to me.
I've also posted a tweet now in our app from Grandmaster Nixons. Is that how you say his name?
I struggle with his last name, so I mostly call him Archers.
Okay. Well, he has tweeted, and we've added that comment, and I think it supports what you've been saying, Jon Ludvig. He says, I think Gukesh's position is quite unpleasant. Ding has an easy game on the queen side, while Gukesh has no counterplay or clear way to liquidate into something that plays by hand. Ding's chances are looking pretty good.
Okay.
So an interesting take from another grandmaster, but I would say it really supports what Jon Ludvig has been saying, that Ding is playing on the queen side. We can't find a plan for Gukesh, and we have an interesting game ahead.
Huh. Interesting. What do you think, Maud, right now? What will be the result in this game 4?
Well, I guess it's a little bit of a boring and conservative answer, but I guess I would assume this would be a draw in the end, because I don't see Gukesh making huge mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think it's very interesting that that Ding is trying to put him under some pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I feel like Gukesh has kind of messed up stuff for himself, not really being provoked by Ding that much. But let's see here if Ding can find something.
Let's see if Ding can find something. He's been thinking for 10.5 minutes. Right now, he is the only player sitting by the board in Singapore. Gukesh has left. It is Ding in the move. This is Game 4 in the World Chess Championship match 2024. They are tied with 1.5 points after 3 games. Ding is the reigning champion. He is the 17th World Chess Champion in history, the 17th King of Chess. Gukesh is fighting at 18 years old to become the 18th World Chess Champion and the youngest in history. Stakes are extremely high in this match. It is best out of 14 games. The first player to reach 7.5 points is the world champion. And if they are still tied after 14 games, it will be decided in tie breaks with the rapid and blitz chess. And that's what happened in 2023 when Ding Liren became the world champion. He beat Jan Nepomniachtchi in those tie breaks. And everyone is saying that it would be an advantage for Ding to take it all the way to tie breaks. He would be a favorite with the shorter time controls. Gukesh's biggest strength, there's many of them, but his biggest strength is his calculation in the long time control. Is he the best in the world at that, Jon Ludvig? With what you've seen over the last year, the candidates, the Olympiad.
He's been very impressive, but what is very strange to say for a guy who's potentially about to become the world champion, he doesn't have that much experience playing against the very, very best.
These two had only played 2 games against each other. 3 games against each other.
3 games against each other previously.
4, yeah.
And obviously Gukesh had a big, big performance at the top stage when he qualified to the World Championship match, playing against 7 of the very, very best other players. But if I can borrow you as my assistant mod, if you could look up how many games Gukesh has played against Magnus Carlsen and against, let's say, Hikaru Nakamura.
We'll do that.
And these other top players
In classical chess.
in classical chess, my hypothesis is that he hasn't done a lot of that.
He's played 4 classical games against Magnus, where Magnus has won 1, and the other 3 were a draw.
That is quite reasonable against Mr. Carlsen.
Who else did you want to know?
Well, I said Nakamura, but I would guess they only played twice because they played in the qualifier to
and
this
Hikaru
match.
hardly ever plays classical.
So yeah, they've played 3 times, 2 draws and 1 game that Hikaru won. So far, like, Gukesh doesn't have the best stats against these super high-rated players.
But that's only natural because he's so young.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was my point? My point was that it's difficult to assess a player that you haven't seen very often play against the very best. He might be the best right now, but I don't think we have the data to necessarily back it up.
But he is definitely extremely strong in calculation.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be here.
So Gukesh's biggest strength is his calculation. What is his weakest point in the chess game? What does he need to work the most on?
I think assessing chess players is very, very difficult, which is why I'm so impressed with Magnus Carlsen, who has very firm opinions on a tremendous amount of players in the world. Even players you haven't heard of, Kaya, who's never played at the top level. Magnus will have studied some games and formed an opinion about them. On
that note, though,
Yeah.
remember you can go into the Take app. You can click favorites, highlight your favorite players. You can hit, for example, Gukesh. Make sure to click the star to highlight him and get notified when he plays game. And there is a video there of Magnus Carlsen rating all the aspects that makes Gukesh the chess player that he is. And it is the same for Ding as well. You can go into his profile and check out the video where Magnus Carlsen rates Dingley Ren. And FYI, Dingley Ren has a total of almost 31,000 followers. Gukesh, 52, almost 53,000 followers. So Gukesh is in the lead in that sense. If you are a Ding fan, you want to go in and highlight him. Sorry, Jon Ludvig, you were saying.
Well, I mean, now I feel like I can just refer to the app. If you want to, I trust Magnus' opinions on players a lot. And Magnus has said that Gukesh struggles with his intuition.
Yep.
Then I would say I support Mr. Carlsen in this. And you can listen more about it in the app.
Exactly. Watch that video. We have a move. After a long think, Ding makes this move, a popular move to move the A-pawn.
Yeah. No, it was a good move. He doesn't get distracted by this knight being in the middle and the fact that he could chase the knight right now if he wanted to. The thing is, he can always chase this knight later. It doesn't need to happen right now. So instead, Ding takes the opportunity to push his pawn forward on the side of the board at a moment where the black knight has moved away from this side of the board where Ding is now aggressing. And that means that what was the obvious response to me earlier with pawn to a5 to block the white pawn from pushing further forward, this pawn move doesn't feel as good. In fact, it might be a mistake now compared to previously, because after the pawn moves forward, the white pawn will capture the black pawn, and this opens up an attack from the queen on the black pawn furthest back. And this is what we often call the root of the pawn chain, the base of the pawn chain in English, because this one is protecting this one, which is protecting this one. But the one that's furthest back, that one doesn't have a pawn to protect it, because otherwise it wouldn't be the furthest back pawn. And this is the weakness in such pawn chains and the one you want to target. And here, the reason I was happy with this for Gukesh previously, that was because this guy hadn't moved up to the left for Gukesh. Instead, it could move to the other direction, attacking white's queen while simultaneously defending this very important pawn. This situation would have been good for Gukesh. However, this situation with the knight committed to what I would say is the wrong side of the board, now it becomes a big issue with the queen pointing down towards black's pawn. So, it's not obvious how Gukesh deals with the fact that if given the opportunity, Ding will just continue pushing his pawn up on the side of the board.
So that's Ding's plan for sure now.
Yeah.
And Gukesh has to do something.
Yeah.
That's the thing in chess. And that's the thing that annoys me the most when I play chess, that I always have to do something. Especially out of the opening, I often feel like, okay, this is good. This is good, and if I make a move now, I'm just going to ruin it. Sometimes I wish I could just not make a move. But that's the beauty of chess. You have to make a move.
So the thing is, by moving the knight up into the middle on the previous move, Gukesh didn't really make it obvious to us what his plan with that move was. And now with Ding just executing his plan, I don't... Yeah, I don't see... Yeah, it's not clear to me what he's doing. So I'm intrigued what he's gonna play now, because I don't really see... I don't see what his intention should be.
I often reach this similar kind of position when I'm playing like the Slav or like the Queen's Gambit declined. Like this kind of pawn structure for black happens so many times, and then you just sit there and you're just kind of waiting to die. So I would love to
What
know.
did you just say?
Not die, but like you're just waiting for them to make lots of problems and then hope you survive it.
Well, you shouldn't do that. You should do something on your own.
Then tell me what I should do, because every time I ask someone this, they're like, "Oh, I don't know." And now you're even saying you don't know.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
What should we do?
Maybe Ding will tell you what you should do with his move now.
If he plays his pawn, well,
normally, so this is the Carlsbad
Yeah.
pawn structure. So this is really what you're talking
Yeah.
about, Maud.
That's
the Carlsbad pawn structure
game
is
over
very
for me.
common from the Queen's Gambit. And one of the things that's worth noticing is that because we've had a trade of the bishops, normally in this pawn formation, in this opening, normally black has a bishop in the middle of the board pointing towards the white king. So the normal way of playing for black in this Carlsbad pawn structure is trying to create an attack on white's king. But without this bishop being able to point towards the white king, then that is part of the reason why Gukesh is missing a clear plan moving forward. And now that I said this out loud, I'm starting to think maybe Gukesh moves his queen up in the middle, because then the suggestion from our viewer becomes something we need to consider again. Because now if the queen moves up and then the knight moves forward, then the queen and knight together are pointing in towards the white king, threatening a checkmate. So maybe queen up in the center. That also makes sense in terms of having connection between the rooks on the last rank.
So you're saying Gukesh should just try to threaten checkmate and hope that works.
Well, no, he shouldn't. Yeah, no. But he can centralize his pieces while also having some thoughts of okay, this queen could potentially at one point in the future point towards white's king. But the white king, despite not having any pieces around it, the pawns white has over here is doing a great job of keeping the king safe. But even so, the queen move up in the middle makes sense. And then after pawn forward from Ding, maybe we go with our rook into the middle as well. I don't really want to push this pawn even well, maybe sometimes. But my concern is if this pawn continues even further, then the pawn moves to a light square, provoking Gukesh to move to a dark square. And this would increase Gukesh's control of some very important dark squares. So, I was going to talk to you about the arrows you made, because I don't think Ding is going to go all the way across with this pawn. I think mostly he's focused a lot of his pieces, putting them on the dark squares because they are so safe on those dark squares, with Gukesh lacking control in that area.
Okay, but now we've had the move from Gukesh, and I had written an explanation in advance, and I'm eager to hear if you have an opinion on that. So I wrote after the rook went to c8 that Gukesh is attempting to meet the advances on the queen side and bringing his rook to a file that may open soon. Is that completely wrong?
Yeah, I think so.
I was thinking, because I thought maybe at some point, perhaps Ding wanted to at least threaten this move. And then that becomes less appealing now with this rook here.
No. If Ding moves this pawn, this pawn's main job right now is keeping the knight in the center safe.
Okay.
If the pawn moves forward, black would not capture this pawn to open up for the rook. Instead, they would use the opportunity to push the pawn forward and chase white's knight away from its very, very good square.
Yeah, but I was thinking that
in the
the
center
rook
of the
here
board.
is still kind of supporting the pawn in a way.
Yeah,
Okay, but fine. Why did he put his rook here then?
I don't understand.
Well, what am I
That's
supposed
not the
to
answer
write?
you were looking for.
What if Magnus is playing golf and he checks this, and he checks what we're writing, and he's shaking his head? Give me something to write. He's attempting to meet the advances on the queen side. Is that that's kind of vague?
So now you're just,
No, I don't know.
you want to go to vague?
No, I don't want to go for vague. I just want I want to understand why he played this move so we can explain people.
Yeah, I'm going to need some time on that. This is a very mysterious move. I don't see how it helps Gukesh whatsoever. And to me, it would be better having the rook where the queen was. So I would understand putting the queen up and then the rook behind the queen. That I would feel like, okay, you're centralizing. And even though the rook is more towards the middle
This has been
now,
played now.
yeah, pawn to a5, that was a completely obvious move. He was always going to do that. And Gukesh's move did nothing to stop Ding's plan. And now Ding is getting to play some quick moves, also having the confidence to do so. And pushing the pawn further up on the side was completely obvious. So, I mean, if Gukesh wants to win me over with this weird rook move, then now would be the time to showcase that you had a plan ready for your opponent's obvious follow-up move. Yeah, no, I don't get it.
Could he ever be preparing to do this?
No, because if he pushes this pawn forward and allows the pawn to be captured, it both opens up for the queen to attack here, but it also means that now this pawn in the middle will have no pawns able to defend it and will make it a long-term weakness. So the idea behind this move can never be to push the pawn forward as long as the white pawns remains protecting that square. But I don't see what else. You know, sometimes this feels like a bad move.
Yeah. This is the kind of move that I would do, and then afterwards is like, oh, you didn't have a plan with that move. That's why you lost the game, because you didn't know what you were doing. You had no intention. You were just making moves to kind of do something. Now, this is when I would start to just think for like 30 minutes, then get low on time, then not find a solution to any of the problems that are occurring. And then the whole game would just go south from there.
But the interesting thing is that the chess engines still consider this position balanced. But now we've heard from Arturs Naikans, the Latvian grandmaster, currently most famous for being Levy's coach. And we've heard from me saying nonstop that I really like Ding's position and I'm not understanding Gukesh's plan. There seems to be a consensus among some of the human players, among the lesser grandmasters, that...
What is a lesser grandmaster?
Well, lesser
The
in
opposite of a
comparison
super grandmaster.
to these guys, at least.
Okay.
That this is just a nice position for white, and this move from Gukesh is just, it's not winning me over by any stretch of the imagination. And then he follows up thinking now, after Ding played the most obvious move in the world.
So the bar still says balanced, but you're liking it better for Ding? Yeah.
I'm liking it better for Ding, and I'm not understanding anything about Gukesh's previous move.
Yeah, while you were not here, Kaya, I was a little bit like, what should we say about this move? And then
I was-
Ludwig just says, I don't know. And I'm like, thanks for the help. All I wrote now is that this move is unclear. What is Gukesh trying to achieve? And that is just left as a question to our viewers that might be checking in on the app.
But that's the fair commentary to make, right? Because it is potentially just a bad move with no clear path moving forward, and the fact that Gukesh now is spending a couple of minutes is further reinforcing that impression.
A lot of the people in our comments are saying that it was...
now at least we understand why he made the rook move. Okay. The point of the rook move was to protect the pawn on on the next pawn. So basically, Gukesh was preparing to break up the 3 pawns on the pawn chain. These pawns were protecting each other up the board. But Gukesh was planning to move one of them, which meant that the next guy in the chain needed extra protection. So there was a very clear intention behind Gukesh's rook move. But in making this advance, Gukesh is now allowing Ding to make a trade between the pawns, opening up for White's rook along the edge of the board. And now Ding could play that rook into Gukesh's half.
Isn't that called 7th heaven? Isn't that amazing to get your rook to the 7th rank?
It can often be nice to have a rook on the 7th rank, but it's much, much better to have both the rooks working together.
Twice as good, actually. Please, you smile, Leon Ludwig.
No, I'm just, I don't know. We're non-native English speakers.
Yeah.
So
was that very obvious with?
Well, I'm just the Maud is the one who grew up in the U.S., right? And I think there's something like 7 minutes in heaven.
That's actually a comment here as well.
Which is never mind. I'm not getting lost in that. Well, now I did.
Lost in translation.
Yeah, it's just certain phrases and things give me connotations in the wrong direction, and my English is not native enough to understand if this was one of them. But it got me thinking. Let's get away from this as quickly as possible. What is the intention behind this pawn now placing itself on the dark square? Well, we talked quite a bit about the bishop and how the bishop is controlling the light squares on the board, but also how both of Gukesh's pawns in the middle are also on the light squares, which are making one of the two redundant in that they're both trying to attack the same area and that they both leave the dark squares poorly supervised. One of the problems this has led to is that Ding has been able to have his knight very nicely in the middle of the board, and there's no clear way for black to chase the knight away because black has such poor control of the dark squares.
Arjan asking, I'm not sure if it's Arjan Tari, but Kaya, can you ask Jon Ludwig if white can go to f4 now?
You can, but whether it's a good move remains to be seen. Let's do Gukesh's plan first, and then we can see how Ding can react to Gukesh's plan once we have an understanding of that. So Gukesh here, placing his pawns on the dark squares, he's trying to build up a new pawn chain, but this time a pawn chain that's on the dark squares, which is able to kick white's knight out of position. So this is Gukesh's plan, kicking the knight away, and if that knight is kicked away, then maybe a lot of Ding's advantage will be neutralized or disappear. Now, to take the viewer question, I think pawn to f4 is a very intriguing move.
Ooh.
Because this pawn will then chase the knight away, and if the knight retreats, I'm interested in the move pawn to b5 for a ding. Previously, on just like a move ago, we said pawn forward here would be a mistake because it allows the black pawn to attack the white knight out of position. But the circumstances have changed, and because of now Gukesh having played his pawn one step forward, now this pawn is no longer controlling an important square inside black's half, allowing the white knight to jump forward, attack the queen, and just wreak havoc in black's position. And the pawn move that was suggested to kick the knight, that was necessary. Because if we try to follow this plan from the current situation on the board, if the pawn moves forward, allowing the black pawn to challenge white's knight, well, then it doesn't work out because the white knight cannot jump into black's territory because it will be captured by the black one. So, and because pawn forward attacking the knight, if the knight now moves back, pawn forward, this seems incredibly powerful for Ding. And because it is so powerful, I believe that Gukesh's intention, should this pawn move forward, is to sacrifice a pawn and move his knight into Ding's territory and create other distractions so that Ding doesn't have the time to complete his wonderful pawn forward plan.
How is this a pawn sacrifice?
Yeah, you could argue it's not a pawn sacrifice. Because if Ding comes in and captures the knight, the pawn will capture the bishop and the queen will capture the pawn. This is why I called it a pawn sacrifice, because Ding manages to capture one of the pawns. But now that Gukesh has changed his pawn formation and has his pawns working on the dark squares instead, the pawns and the bishops are working together beautifully yet again. Because now the black pawn is able to chase away the white knight, and when the knight moves back, then the bishop comes in, attacking the queen and the rook. And so while Gukesh temporarily lost a pawn, he was always guaranteed to get a bishop for a rook trade afterwards. So, like Maud says, it's not really a pawn sacrifice, because if you continue your calculations, you will see that the bishop will be able to take out white's rook. So what is our conclusion then, going back to the current situation? Probably the conclusion is that we don't have time to chase after the black knight, because right now the knight can move forward, which creates problems for Ding.
So I'm trying to follow these different variations. We've looked at playing the pawn to f4 and the knight moving forward, or we've looked at the knight moving backwards, which we didn't think was good. We've looked at the knight moving forwards, which did look good. But another suggestion that I've seen some people write in the YouTube comments, and I guess that's also because this is the top engine move that we can see in the app, is to move the bishop here and threaten this rook. Do you think Ding will do that?
No.
Bad Syntax is saying, wow, this is a critical position. Do you agree, Ludwig?
Yeah, no, this is really spicing up because now finally we've understood Gukesh's plan, and the plan is very potent. If this pawn is able to chase away Ding's knight in the center of the board, that would be a disaster for Ding's position.
Ooh.
So Ding really needs to come up with a good counter plan at this moment. And the reason I said I don't think he will use his bishop to attack the rook is because then the rook just moves, and then the bishop will be blocking the rook's influence along the side of the board. And there's also some situations in which the black pawn moves forward and the bishop is just stuck. So if this is good for white, it's going to be based on some very, very tricky calculations. So I guess what I'm thinking initially is that when this rook is tempted into moving forward, now we can go with our pawn to attack the knight in the middle. And when the knight moves forward like it did instead, earlier, I mean, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, we get the same situation we analyzed earlier. The only difference is the positioning of the black rook. But then you could make the argument that because the rook is one step further up the board, that allows white's knight to move forward and attack the rook, so that when the black bishop comes in to attack white's queen,
We have a move.
the queen can move back, and when the rook is captured, so is black's rook. And this becomes very tricky calculation. And Ding chooses not to go for this tricky stuff.
He goes for retreating his knight. We didn't consider that.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing for him if he can no longer have the knight in the middle of the board, Ding.
So he moves his knight after thinking for, I think, like 12 minutes. He's down to 50 minutes left on his clock. It's now Gukesh thinking. He has ticked under 1 hour on the clock. That's the time he has left to reach move 41. All right. What's happening with the position now then, Jan Ludwig?
So Ding anticipates that his knight is about to be pushed away. And so he chooses to voluntarily retreat so that he's better prepared should Gukesh continue advancing his pawns over from the light squares to the dark squares. To me, this seems like sensible play. The only question I have is whether Gukesh could take this opportunity to make a trade between the knights. And now the key part of Ding's plan is that he wants to go pawn forward in the middle next, and then he will remain with a solid advantage because he has pawns higher up on the board than what Gukesh does. So a key point for the Indian here is that he needs to stop the pawn from taking over the knight's good positioning in the center. And there's a couple of ways of doing this, but I think all of them starts with accepting the trade. So I'm expecting the trade. I'm expecting Ding to recapture with the bishop, because taking with the pawn will open up towards the white king. You're not going to want to do that. So here, black can go either bishop forward into white's half, and then the bishop is attacking the rook, but really the primary purpose of this bishop is that it's standing in the way of the pawn moving forward, thus preventing Ding's new plan. The problem is that the bishop would then be on the same rank as the white queen, and I'm not sure we can guarantee the safety of this bishop in the long term.
And the trade of knights, like you predicted, Jon Ludvig, has happened.
Yeah, so I'm just going to continue the analysis
Go
from
ahead.
here. So what I find more likely is that Gukesh now pushes his pawn forward in the middle of the board. This has two major benefits. Number one, it prevents the white pawn from moving there, because a pawn cannot capture an opponent moving forward. But it also takes the black pawns in the middle that we've been saying they're on the light squares, and as such not working together very wonderfully with the black bishop. Well, now Gukesh has the opportunity to push that pawn to a dark square, which is strategically favorable. And this is the first moment in the game he's had that option, because previously Ding had his knight standing in the way. So as the knight moves, it opens up an opportunity for the pawn push forward. And this seems like a very good move to me. And it seems like Gukesh has solved his problems out of the opening, and that the game is now going to be a draw if Gukesh moves the pawn forward.
If we see this move, would you call it a great move? And we do have that move now.
Yeah.
Is it a great move?
Great move. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's do the great move.
Ooh, good one, Jon Ludvig. We have the great move on the screen as well. Isn't that fun?
And Ding responds immediately. He was anticipating this.
Yeah, he definitely saw this coming. It was the obvious way to continue for Gukesh. Ding moves his knight back, now attacking the pawn in the middle of the board. Maybe I was too quick. Can Ding still be a little bit better? No, I don't think so. So now the pawn in the middle is under attack. I would be very surprised if Gukesh did not capture the white pawn.
And he does.
And now Ding is going to recapture, because now Gukesh has opened up for his queen through the center of the board. So in order to avoid being captured by the queen, the white pawn needs to make the recapture and get away from the queen. And suddenly the board is very clarified compared to what we've seen earlier. Ding is still a little bit better, because Ding has a nice square for his knight in the center of the board, protected by a pawn. You will remember that this is the place Ding had his other knight previously. But this in itself should not be enough to win the game. And I'm expecting now Gukesh to move his... This is the phase of the game where you're so close to just shutting down your opponent's intentions, but you still need one or two good moves.
Niamanda is saying, let's talk pawn structure.
Yeah, the pawn structure, pawn formation right now. Ding is definitely better off because it's quite easy for Ding to target this this pawn on Black's queen side. And especially with the white bishop pointing towards that pawn, one of the main ideas, or the idea that came first to mind for me, is to move the bishop from the corner of the board into the middle, forcing a trade with white's bishop. And now after the trade, the black knight gets a good position in the middle of the board, and you avoid the bishop pointing towards the black pawn.
Gukesh moves his bishop out.
Yeah, so he does go for that plan we're analyzing on the board right now. And it would be shocking if Ding did not capture this bishop now.
Mm-hmm.
We're having a lot of trades happening.
Yeah. Oh, do we have any takes? Ooh.
Honestly, I was not.
No, we didn't. It was 2 in a row.
Okay.
2 times 2 in a row. But we didn't have the triple take.
The triple take is what we're looking for.
We actually did have the triple take the day before yesterday.
But we missed it.
In the previous game. But we were so focused on talking to Hikaru that we missed the moment in that.
But we can get it now, because if we do have the trade of the bishops, and then if Ding then takes on, we can have 4 in a row. 4 takes in a row.
But that then depends on the trade over here,
Because
which I think is unlikely.
the computer is actually suggesting that Ding takes on b6 instead of trading these bishops.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but he didn't do any of it.
He didn't
Ignore
do
what
it.
I said.
You said that would be shocking, Jon Ludvig. If he didn't take?
Yeah,
you
I
said
may have. I would. Yeah, shocking in this position that has really clarified is maybe using too strong words. I expected him to make the trade because I thought that if he attacked the queen like Ding did, I thought it would then be beneficial for Gukesh to use his queen into the middle of the board instead of using the knight. But clearly, Ding has a different opinion on that. But I think this was... Well, I mean, the game is probably going to be a draw anyway. But I think it is nice for Gukesh to get his queen in the middle instead of the knight. And Gukesh does quite quickly play his queen to protect the bishop. Now, on the other hand, it's likely that we get the take.
Ooh. Will you push it, Jon Ludvig?
I didn't have it, but now I do.
Okay, the bishop has traded for the knight. No, I'm sorry. The bishop has traded for the bishop, and the knight has recaptured.
He didn't use the queen?
Nope.
Okay, I thought the point of the rook maybe being not the best was that now you could use the queen instead. Okay, Gukesh uses the knight after all, and now the biggest excitement in the game is whether there will be a trade between the pawns, which would be a take. But beyond that, Kaya, the game is very likely to be a draw.
Okay, that's not
there have
exciting.
been so many trades now.
But if we can have a take, then I'll be excited about that.
I'm adding a poll now to the app. Will we have the take situation?
Will we have a take situation?
And it would be a take situation, actually.
Ooh. What's the longest, take situation you've...
Often when there's an open file that we have now in the D file there, suddenly all the rooks and the queens could all be traded, and that would result in a lot.
There's this page of chess records that keeps the record for the most captures in a row.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I don't know what the record is though. But I know which page I would go to figure it out.
What's the page then?
It's some Dutch guy.
I'm trying to Google it. Somebody says that they have seen a game where there were 22 captures in a row on Lichess. $13 in a row. Oh, chess records.
No, but that's a New Zealand thing.
Okay.
The guy I know, I think it's Dutch. But these things are interesting. So now maybe more people are tracking the records. We need to get more numbers into chess. Well, I'm actually serious, even though you're giving me the sarcastic laugh, because chess is lacking some, such as here, right? The most consecutive trades, right? We could have like a greater awareness in commentary for some numbers stuff.
So here there are some people that are trying to make like these hypothetical situations, whereas many pieces. So this is not a real game, but they are trying to get, and then they were able to find 22 captures in a row. But that's when both players are kind of coordinating and trying to make as many captures as possible.
On the same square.
Yeah, on the same square. So that's not necessarily
That's
what
a
we're
different
asking.
thing. Yeah.
That is true. I'm not finding your Dutch page.
Maybe it's not Dutch. Maybe it's Winters.
Winters. Chess captures in a row.
Records.
Oh, and we do have the take now.
Oh,
Wait, you said I was doing it.
you are.
Was that it?
Are you disappointed?
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cool.
Okay.
We have a take on the board. It's for the second time, but it's the first time in the World Chess Championship match that we discover the take on the board. Amazing stuff. We did expect it. So, what does it look like now? On the board, Jon Ludvig.
Ding is slightly better, and part of the reason why is because he has opened up for his rooks to point down into the opponent's half. But it's unlikely to be enough pieces remaining on the board for this to play a significant role. I'm expecting now Ding to move his rook up along the side. I think this is why he made the trade between the pawns, to open up for his rook to get involved, and then his rook can try and start targeting these black pawns. Seems very reasonable to me.
The bar has not moved at all today.
It's been very balanced. I think Gukesh has done a good job of it looked a little bit hopeless, and there were a lot of grandmasters.
Hopeless is a strong word, but it looked difficult.
It looked difficult. Okay. Well, there were many people on Twitter, and some of the grandmasters that we have posted the tweets from in our app, they said that this looks very difficult for Gukesh to find a solution to. So has he found that solution now?
I believe he has. And he's done a great job of defending.
So now you're suspecting that Ding is going to play his rook to attack that pawn.
Yeah.
But they've been playing way faster today as well. I mean, they both have... Ding has 42 minutes left and Gukesh has 51. And they're on move 22. So this has been a lot better time management from Ding, at least today.
Yeah, but it's still more than 3 minutes per move on average.
Yeah, but isn't the game kind of calming down a bit now?
Sure, but at the same time, how many quick moves did they make in the opening? Or should they normally expect to make in the opening? I still feel like they're spending too much time, and if the position on the board right now was as tricky as it was yesterday, basically meaning if there hadn't been so many trades today, they could still end up being in trouble with the amount of time they have remaining. So I would like to see them play the first 20 moves in less than an hour before I go and say that.
But today we had such an unusual positioning out of the opening.
True, but it also wasn't the most. It was like it was a strategic position, which, to be fair, I think can be just as difficult to play as a one full of captures and threats. But yeah, I suppose you're right. They're having some uncommon openings. Today they have a better excuse from the opening than yesterday when they had the previous game.
Did we end up with an actual name to today's opening?
We called it Ding's surprise opening.
We call it Ding's surprise opening.
And if you would like to blame someone for that,
yeah, I'll take the blame for that. And then you can ask.
Yeah, ask Magnus what he would call it.
Magnus in the recap, what he would call this.
We will definitely get.
I suspect Magnus doesn't really care too much about what you call
the actual
openings.
name.
Yeah, just whether it's good or not.
But it's also interesting to hear. Did he think that this opening was a success for Ding?
Yeah.
All right, but actually, Ding does not go for after the pawn. He actually tries to trade off the knights.
Yeah, that is basically like offering a draw from Ding.
Oh.
Ding is, in fact, this is hammer time. This game is going to end in a draw. Ding is trading off one of the last remaining imbalances in the game, where the knights could jump trickily, and create some issues. If Ding had moved his knight up into the center of the board, it could have attacked towards the black pawn. It could have potentially jumped further in to black's half. But when he chooses to just go for the trade with black's knight, that is a clear sign of no ambition from Ding. He considers this game to be pretty much over, is my feeling. And he has settled within himself that the game is going to be a draw.
Okay. Well, we can see on the screens here in the studio, Ding Liren is looking up at Gukesh. Gukesh is looking down at the board. He is the one in the move. He has spent 1.5 minutes now on move 23. So
they're not allowed to offer a draw.
They're not allowed to offer a draw until move 41. Game 2 was a draw after repetition, and that was actually in move 23.
Yeah,
so will that happen soon, do you think, then, Jon Ludvig?
Well, there's no way of constructing a back and forth situation right now. So even though a draw is a likely result, they cannot create a back and forth immediately. So we're definitely going to play a while. Longer. But I think both players are confident the game is going to end in a draw. Both players are happy for the game to end in a draw. But it's going to take some time figuring out how to create the 3 times same situation that is required for them to be allowed to actually shake hands.
But one imbalance that would remain in the position, even if these knights are traded off, is the positioning of the pawns. So is there any way to kind of take advantage of the fact, or is it a disadvantage that Gukesh has these 2 pawns over here?
I think it's well, okay, I don't know how these are going to be traded off, but let's say Gukesh takes and recaptures. I think it's a disadvantage having the 2 pawns versus 1 here. And the reasoning for that is that these pawns are easier to attack than these pawns, or these pawns for that sake. The pawns on the opposite flank are part of a bigger grouping of pawns that are protecting each other and that are difficult to attack. Whereas these black pawns over here, they can be attacked by the queen. They can be attacked by the rook. There's so many different ways that that Ding can put further pressure on these. So I would still say if anyone is better, it's very slightly Ding. But I also think that if Ding wanted to go for the win, he wouldn't have traded off the knights like he's doing right now.
And Gukesh is thinking, so is he considering to keep these knights on the board?
No.
Then why is he thinking?
Because he's thinking either I take the white knight or I allow the white knight to capture me. And in that second case, for instance, if Gukesh moves his rook into the middle right now, then by capturing the knight in the center, black gets the queen up into the middle. And then you can say it's an advantage having the queen more aggressively placed. And then Ding can say, well, maybe it's not an advantage if I can start creating counterattacks towards your king. But I would say probably it's nice for Gukesh to get the queen up in the middle. So I'm going to say rook over here to point down through the middle would be my favorite move.
But also offering up another trade of those rooks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because right now white is the one controlling the open
and
files.
he's played this move that you said.
With the rook. So we need to counter white's current advantage of the better placed rook. Neutralize the white rooks.
The rook has moved. And there it is.
And Ding goes for the trade of knights, and that means that Gukesh gets his queen to the center.
Yeah.
Everything as you expected, Jon Ludvig.
Yeah, I think it's likely that this game is going to end fairly soon. I'm not seeing a lot of ambition in Ding's play. And we were saying that if anyone is better, it should be Ding. But
you usually have your yogurt around this time. Do you now want to wait until the game is over?
Yeah, I think there's no need for my yogurt break right now. Pawn to h3. Ding just makes sure that he has an escape for his king, if necessary. This is classic to avoid the so-called back rank checkmate. Sometimes, if both of these rooks are traded off the board with both of black's rooks, then you could imagine a situation where the black queen attacks in towards the white king, and the white king, despite having lots of pawns in front of it to protect it, it has no protection in from the side. And in fact, it's trapped behind its own pawns and is checkmated. Whereas if he put his pawn one step forward on the side, just like Ding now did, then he would be able to escape. So this is a classic making space for the king move in case of any accidents along the back rank.
It's also his way of saying, I would rather that you trade with my rook so that my rook stays in control of that file.
Yeah.
The queen is here. here, by the way.
And there's no clear way for Gukesh to trade off or go into a position where they go back and forth. So while both players feel like the other guy is happy with a draw, Gukesh in particular is still taking his time because he feels like he still needs to be accurate with his moves so that Ding just suddenly doesn't change his mind and says, oh, well, I don't know if this guy is playing the best moves. Maybe I'll try to go for the win after all. The way Ding has played the last couple of moves, it can sometimes put you into a complacent state where you realize your opponent is happy if the game ends in a draw, and so you just assume it's going to be a draw no matter what you do. And that can be a tricky phase of the game because, well, then you might end up making a mistake because you think the result of the game is a given.
I've written now in the app that both players are probably happy with the draw, like you're saying, Ludwig, but that they're not allowed to offer the draw before move 41, and that they therefore must go back and forth into a threefold repetition, which is a word we have defined in the app. We need to reach the position 3 times in a row, and it will be declared a draw due to a lack of progress, but that is difficult to achieve in this position. So that the people who are not following our broadcast also understand this, because I think this is a question many people have, that they're thinking, we're saying it's a draw, why are they not just taking a draw?
Yeah.
But they're not allowed to.
They're not allowed to. That's the situation. All right. This is game 4 in the World Chess Championship match. We are thinking this game, well, not we, but Jon Ludwig and Maud, the experts here in the studio, are thinking that this is probably going to be a draw by repetition and not too many moves. I see there's a lot of stuff happening in the chat on YouTube. Thank you to everyone for hanging out with us. I see some people requesting some more mods in the chat. There is a lot of activity. I just want to remind you that even though my sweater says, don't play nice in the chat, you guys. But don't play nice. And the back of my sweater says, I have to move my hair, play chess. Don't play nice, play chess, and be nice in the chat. Thank you for hanging out with us. And if you are enjoying our behind-the-scenes stream following the World Chess Championship match, then please give us a thumbs up. We would really appreciate that. We are a new company. We've only been alive for about a month in the App Store and on YouTube, and we would love to get some more followers on our social media accounts. I've also seen people requesting the live footage from Singapore. We don't have that for the World Chess Championship match, but we will have it for the World Rapid and Blitz. We will be one of the broadcast right holders. So we will have footage from New York for the World Rapid and Blitz, which starts on December 26th. That's going to be fun. But first of all, this is very cool. All right.
And we have a pretty committal move from Gukesh, who's trying to maybe trade off the pawns on the queen side. That's at least what I wrote, in case this move can happen.
Well, the thing is, 2 pawns, more difficult to defend than 1 pawn, in a way. It's one less thing to keep control of. So Gukesh is offering a trade with White's pawn, and I'm expecting that trade to be accepted by Ding. And so the fewer the pawns on the board, the fewer, the less potential there is for new queens, and the higher the likelihood of a draw. That's a general rule of thumb.
Yeah.
The fewer the pawns, the more likely the draw.
Mm-hmm. When I'm trying to win a game, I'm always like trying to not trade off pieces, because my rule is that that's a piece I can't win. If we trade them off, you can't win that piece. And the fewer pawns, and especially if we end up in a situation where all these pieces are just attacking and protecting this one pawn, then how is anybody going to make any progress?
Yeah. Okay. Ding chooses to go for a trade between the rooks. I'm expecting Gukesh to recapture. Yes, he did. And now I think maybe Ding wants to bring his rook forward to attack in towards the black pawn together with the queen. And one of the reasons I'm expecting this move from Ding.
That was another takes situation.
Oh! Push that button!
Because
Yes!
the pawns now also traded off.
So first the rook trade, then the pawn trade. And then instead of the rook moving up, Ding is moving his rook to the side. So Ding is targeting the last remaining black pawn. But to me, the big question here is if Gukesh were to say, I want to trade queens with you, would Ding then say, no queen trade, I'm going for the win? Or would he say, okay, queen trade, that suits me because I'm just trying to make a draw? But Gukesh chooses not to go for the queen trade, so apparently he feels that could put him under some pressure. Instead, he wants to keep his queen in the most central placement of the board, pointing both to the left and to the right, and also then protecting his pawn. And now there is the potential for a big blunder if Ding now moves his queen over to try and trade with the black queen. That would be a losing mistake because then the black rook would push up, check on the king. The king cannot escape because the queen holds that square under control. So in order to stop the check on the king, the rook will have to capture the black rook. But now the problem is the white rook no longer defends the queen, and the game is lost. Although obviously Ding is not going to fall for that trap.
And I just want to mention, we can see from the footage from Singapore that we have on our screens that both of the players were in their resting areas for quite some time actually, but Ding just came back, and Ding is the one in the move. And you were saying, Jan Ludvig.
Yeah, I think both players are expecting this game to end fairly quickly. So maybe in order to save, to make sure that they get to go to the bathroom before the press conference, maybe they're making sure to go to the bathroom while the clocks are still ticking.
Yeah. Bunch of questions in the chat, and thank you for those questions about the merch. So I'm wearing a sweater today. Maud is also wearing a Beyond the Board sweater. We have them in several colors, several sayings, several logos, and I want to give a shout out to our excellent designer Mats in the company, who's been working hard on making some really cool merch. We also have, I'll give you guys a close up of that, the stickers. And all of that is coming in a merch store on taketake.com. It's not ready quite yet, but there will be merch with some awesome designs, you guys. I look forward to that.
I've also posted another tweet in our app now from Susan Polgar this time. She's saying that Ding's unambitious play with the white pieces is achieving very little. This game is headed towards a peaceful ending. So
I still think Ding's opening, both in Game 2 and here in Game 4, was very interesting and pretty innovative, and gave him some pressure. But the problem, and where I definitely agree with Susan, is that at some point he just loses all ambition and just steers the game into a draw. But maybe that's his strategy.
that's how you play a world championship match often.
Yeah. So like if you feel like, okay, I don't have any advantage here, I'm just going to kill the game.
Because he did test Gukesh a little bit in the opening.
Yeah, no, he did. So it's not like this was a non-game. it felt like Ding had some pressure. It's just that Gukesh defended very well, and now we're looking at a very likely draw.
Okay. Who is that an advantage for, would you say, on Ludwig? In the match situation?
Well, I think obviously anyone drawing with black in the World Championship match is going to be happy. And I think Gukesh did what we expected of him today. In game 2, the previous game, he had the black pieces. He chose to go for a solid opening, even though he was down in the match, which I think was a mature and appropriate decision, because it's 14 games in the match. Just because you lose the first one doesn't mean you need to panic. And Gukesh didn't panic. He played solidly. He made a draw. Then he managed to win with the white pieces. Now the match is tied, and he sticks to his strategy, playing solidly as black, being slightly worse, but defending it very nicely. And now in the next game, Gukesh has another white, and he has been able to put some pressure on Ding with his previous white games. So I'm looking forward to that one. And the 2 games that have ended in wins, one for Ding and one for Gukesh, both of them have been when Gukesh has the white pieces. All the more reason to be very excited about tomorrow.
All right, and now Ding has played his queen to attack the pawn together with the rook.
It's not actually a threat.
No, I see that now.
Right now. Because if the queen captures the pawn...
I wrote in the app that the queen increases the pressure on the pawn.
Yeah.
I didn't use the word threat there.
So if the queen captures the pawn, then we would have the same trap as earlier, with the black rook giving a check on the king. The king has nowhere to escape. So the black rook has to be captured by white's rook, but that leaves the queen undefended, and black captures the white queen to win the game.
So not really threatening the pawn, but increasing the pressure on the pawn. And now it's a little bit hard to think of what Gukesh is supposed to do, because this pawn is not really threatened, so he doesn't need to defend it. But he doesn't really have anything else to be doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the typical thing that happens in these situations is that you push your pawn on the side of the board one step forward, hoping to get even further up. But then in order to prevent you from getting even further up, then your opponent does the same thing. And then you push your pawn in front of your king to create a pawn chain, the pawns defending each other, but then your opponent does the same thing as well. And yeah, there's not really any credible way of making any progress here for either side.
Yeah, several people in the chat are writing that they would play the move g6, which I guess is supporting your plan, Jonudvik.
Yeah.
Same idea, different order of moves. Doesn't really matter anyways.
Yeah, just very slightly improving the positioning of the king.
They're now on move 29, or Gukesh is on his 29th move. Do you think they will offer each other a draw immediately on move 41 if they get there without the repetition before that?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, we're watching here the footage from Dubai. Dubai, you hear? Singapore. I was on the right continent, but wrong country. And we can see that both of the players are sitting by the board. It is Ding in the move right now. We are expecting this to be a draw, and if it is, it means they are tied after 4 games. Ding and Gukesh in the World Chess Championship match. Game 5 will be played tomorrow. And in that game, Gukesh will have the white pieces. And so far in the match, the games that have ended up with winners have been when Gukesh has had the white pieces. He lost the first game with the white pieces, and then he won his second game with the white pieces.
It's interesting that we've had very different openings in every single game. I mean, when you're playing against each other 14 times, at some point, we will have to reuse something. And that will be interesting to know what is it that Gukesh, for example, what did he find out about his previous white opening? Is he going to go for that again? Or is he going to do something completely different, try to discover more of Ding's preparation?
Yeah.
This is always as a commentator, I think this is the most difficult phase of the game. Because I'm entirely convinced what the result is going to be.
We already saw the hammer time.
But we're still having some transport issues in getting to the result. And the players want to make sure that their opponent doesn't suddenly change their mind and realize that, well, actually I might go for the win here because I think my opponent is not paying attention to the position and has already kind of checked out mentally. So you want to keep your alertness as a player, but as a commentator, especially when the players stay alert and don't take anything for granted, and make sure to think about every single decision, even though they are pretty convinced it's going to end in a draw. That creates the long pauses while we still think, obviously this is going to end in a draw. If the guys were playing much quicker now, then we would be happy because we would have more moves to talk about. And even if the game would end in a draw, at least, you had some excitement going on. But this way, and my argument was going to be, but that also would increase the likelihood of suddenly something spectacular happening if they played quickly and didn't spend too much time on their moves. But now, when they're both spending enough time to kind of completely reassure themselves that this is going to be a draw, then they're not going to make any blunders, but they're also giving us the difficult task of keeping the chatter going.
Yeah.
Despite the lack of wonder, of unexpectedness on the board.
While we wait then for Gukesh to sort of make his move and to see if this game in fact will end in the draw, how about we do a little bit of a live recap of being in the studio kind of thing. Jon Ludvig, you are a straightforward guy. You're a chess player. You tell the truth. Is there anything, do you have any complaints, something we need to fix for the rest? Like now we have the new chairs, more comfortable. We can all agree, right?
Yeah.
This is more comfortable.
I think so.
In terms
Or
of
wait, let's hear what Jon Ludvig says.
I think they're
I agree.
fine. I don't really notice any difference.
Okay. So you're fine with the chairs. In terms of serving, I can see your...
I would like some more water, yes.
Let's get Jon Ludvig some more water. How about you, Maud?
No, I'm doing pretty good. I also, like we were talking about the other day, we're used to commercial TV and commercial breaks.
Yeah.
We don't have any of those anymore, but I also feel like when we're watching this kind of a game where it's it's slower than what we're used to, I feel like it's more peaceful and you can kind of digest every move. Usually if you go to the bathroom during a rapid game, you just miss so much of the important moves. So in that way, I feel like this is a good way to watch this kind of a game, to kind of chill in a studio like this. I'm happy.
Yeah, I enjoy it myself. How about you, Jon Ludvig?
No, I'm wondering if you're going anywhere in
No,
particular.
I'm just wondering. Do you have any feedback? Is there something we need to do better for you?
List your complaints.
No, I'm pretty happy. But I'm very put on the spot right now.
Yes.
Maybe I'll come up with something I'm unhappy about in a couple of hours. But right now I'm feeling happy.
Should we have sent out any notifications lately? I haven't been thinking about that too much today.
Well, the thing is,
A lot of the action is kind of over, right?
yeah, maybe we could have sent a notification when there were, a lot of trades happening very quickly after one another. But the thing is, then I was kind of expecting the game to be a draw within a half an hour. And then also, the game was petering out, and you don't really want to send a notification to people that, oh, you missed the all the trades, and now there's not much excitement left. And this is the trickiness of chess, right? It's so easy to sell the first 3 games we had. But this game, I think, has been a bit of a dud in comparison to the other games we've had. But I want to emphasize, especially to those watching a World Championship match for the first time, or maybe this is bad to emphasize, but this match has been extraordinarily exciting from the start. The fact that Ding won with the black pieces in game 1, that never happens, or at least it hadn't happened so far this millennia and a couple of decades before that as well, to win with the black pieces in the first game. And having 2 games end with a winner in the first 3, that's also quite rare. So this has been a thrilling match. And as such, we become a bit disappointed sitting here, having to kind of watch over all the trades about to happen.
Yeah.
But it's worth it for all the exciting moments that we have had prior to this.
The chat is going at me for saying that Singapore and Dubai are on the same continent. Asia is still one continent, right? You don't have...
I guess some people kind of think that,
you
I guess
have,
Dubai is a part of the Middle East, and I don't know how the continents work. I was struggling the other day when we were saying that Ding and Gukesh are the first players from Asia to play each other, but then there have been like these complete Russian duels.
Yeah.
And I was like, is Russia in Asia? And then I just tried to hope nobody was going to arrest me on that geography knowledge.
I don't think you were arrested, but I was definitely arrested. But I would say we talk about Asia as one country, and then of course you have Western Asia and you have Eastern Asia, Southeastern Asia. You'll be the judge of this.
I believe Dubai is considered Asia. And being a sports reporter, Kaya, that is your background. I know that Saudi Arabia, all the Middle Eastern countries play in the Asian qualifier to the World Cup.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, we will rely on soccer to guide us there.
All right. So good.
And now I'm going to get a lot of comments for saying soccer. But
well, so I didn't make a complete A of myself saying they were both in Asia. Well, you guys, it's a slow day in the World Chess Championship match 2024. Gukesh is in the move. We are waiting for him. We've been waiting for him for actually 13 minutes now to make his move.
Very strange.
I was going to say, if everyone I can see, and especially you guys are saying, it's a draw, it's a draw, it's a draw. So shouldn't then the moves be coming out very easily? Is he actually searching for a win in this game right now?
Yeah, the big question is whether he feels like he needs to be accurate to make a draw, or whether he actually feels that having the extra pawn on the side of the board can be an advantage, because that pawn could have an easier time becoming a new queen, being further away from the opposing king than, well, every other pawn on the board. But yeah, I don't know.
Like, should we take a look then? Is there any move Gukesh could make now that would make you say now, Jon-Ludvig, okay, he is gonna fight. He is gonna try something here.
No.
That was not the response I was hoping for.
No, but I genuinely don't understand if he's looking for ways to win or whether he feels he needs to be accurate just to make the draw.
Maybe he feels like he's well rested. He's had this rest day, and now he doesn't mind sitting here. He feels comfortable. We've actually posted a picture in the app that both players are looking a bit more comfortable. Like Ding is kind of more like slouched with his head in his hands, but like in a very chill way. And I feel like that indicates that they're not stressed and nervous right now.
Yeah, but maybe then Gukesh is thinking, okay, Ding feels
ball.
like this is pretty over.
Yeah, the bar. Something happened to the bar there, but it's back to basic.
Okay, and Ding is playing instantly. So rook forward in the center of the board. Now Ding, pawn one step forward in front of his king. So Ding is now ready to make a draw because he's creating some space for his king, and this is important. If it was Ding's turn now, then the Ding could use his pawn, attack the rook moves, and now Ding can actually take out the black pawn, because now if the rook tries to come forward, attack the king like we studied earlier, now because Ding has pushed this pawn forward, the king can hide, and the rook and the queen protect one another. So there's no more trick where capturing the black pawn is a trap that Ding has to avoid. So Ding is getting ready to take out the black pawn, and therefore I think we could be seeing the last moves of this game. Well, it feels like Ding just wants this to be a draw. And if now Gukesh just plays the pawn forward in front of his own king, then Ding can just go for the draw if he so chooses.
I don't know if it's bad to advertise for other recaps than the ones that we're going to have here on the Take channel. But Anish Giri has already tweeted that Game 4 pre-cap, as he's calling it, is already out on my YouTube channel. Anish has already called this a draw. He's already recapped the entire game there. So if you're that sure that it's a draw, you can go watch that.
That's fun. That's fun. I like that.
But we got a bit of a dramatic move now.
Wow.
Ooh, what is happening?
Wow, that is a surprise. This is what you were looking for, Kaya.
Exactly.
Gukesh is preventing Ding's plan to just end this game right now. Gukesh wants to continue playing.
Will Anish regret his pre-cap now?
He's going to have to edit the video for sure. This pawn move is completely unexpected. This prevents Ding from pushing his pawn up and kicking the rook out of its positioning. But on the other hand, this is a major weakening of the area around the black king. Wow. This is a very surprising move.
Wow. I added that this game is not over as the title. We can also use this when people have little time. So it's kind of like a neutral comment. So it's not really that anybody's winning, but somebody could be low on time. There could be a take situation, or the fact now that the game is actually becoming a little bit more complicated than what several people have predicted. But it's still balanced.
Well, Jon Ludvig is now...
I'm wondering if Ding wants to just make a draw, maybe you can move your queen over to the side of the board, point the queen towards the king, and if the king moves, then you can just continue pointing your queen towards the king. that should probably be enough for a draw. Well, everything is enough for a draw here. Should Ding start thinking about what can I do to win? How crazy would that be? The move that I kind of want to make, but it feels a bit risky. I want to go pawn forward. Pushing the pawn forward in front of my own king. But the thing is, if this pawn is captured, then white takes back. And now white actually has... So basically what happened is that Gukesh then would capture a pawn away from the middle, whereas Ding comes from the side and captures in towards the middle. And then suddenly, this pawn here is the only central pawn remaining, the only pawn that really puts a lot of control in the middle of the board. But on the other hand, then you have suddenly weaknesses in front of your king to think about. I'm curious, what is the computer recommendation now?
It's to put the queen to e2 or move the queen closer to the king. I guess that kind of supports your idea, Ludwig. Maybe the queen is also supporting that move.
Yeah. Maybe.
It doesn't say us a whole lot.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But it was very surprising that Gukesh has shown some intention here of actually continuing playing. And with him planning to continue, it's very surprising that Kaya is seemingly packing her stuff.
I was trying to do that in silence. So I have something else I need to do. So I'm going to be leaving the studio right now. But
in our capable hands.
Exactly. I'm the least important person in here. We have the two people running the show. They will stay with all of you guys until this is over. We have a little bit more excitement right now with a little bit of development in the game, but I expect you still think it's a draw.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Ding moves his king one step forward. Honestly, not the move I was expecting.
We'll be sure to notify you, Kaya, if something does happen.
I have my phone. I'll put the sound as soon as I leave this room so that I get the notification when stuff happens. I love having the Take app with me at all times. You guys should too. Enjoy the rest of this behind the scenes stream together with Jon Ludvig and Maud. Enjoy the rest of this game and remember the recap after the game together with Magnus Carlsen and Levi Rosman to be published later today. All right, well, keep enjoying you guys. Should I bring you some food, Jon Ludvig?
Yes, please.
And a coffee, Maud?
No, I'm good. I'm good. People in the chat are reacting to the queen being placed very terribly. Jon Ludvig, could you please fix that? And also, we got Gukesh's move now. He also moved his king.
Take this up.
Very strange move from Gukesh. He moves his king away from the middle of the board, trying to go to the sides. But now he's voluntarily placing his king where the white queen is pointing down. Very, very strange, I think.
And now Ding moves his queen out of that diagonal.
Wait, why? But now you can move this pawn forward.
He moved his queen to c4. Oh, the queen was actually on the wrong square. That was what people were reacting to. Whatever. Now it's on the right square. It went to e2, and then it went.
What do you mean?
Oh, no, it didn't. Okay, whatever. The queen is on c4.
Okay, yeah, no, this is very strange. He had the opportunity to play my favored move and tried to capitalize on his queen pointing towards the black king. Because now pawn takes pawn wasn't even a possibility because that would leave the king undefended on the diagonal. But instead, Ding moves his queen up. What is he planning with this move? Is Ding now going for the win? Surely not. Everything Ding has done has really been based on him wanting to end this game as quickly as possible. How close are we to move 41?
We're on move 32, or Ding just completed his 32nd move. Ding has 27 minutes left, or almost 28, and Gukesh is soon down to 20 minutes. Is that going to be a problem at all?
No, shouldn't be.
I feel like actually Gukesh has kind of put himself in a weird situation where it's kind of hard to find moves because he's put his queen and rook kind of trapped between his own pawns. Like he's restricted himself a little bit. I would be a little bit nervous if I was Gukesh right now.
Well, if he wants to, he can move his queen one step forward and say check on the king and threaten the white queen. And then there would likely be a trade between the queens. And then the rook would attack the pawn. The pawn would be defended. The pawn would attack the rook. We would have a special en passant move. I'm just doing this a bit quickly. Because my point is, at the end of this situation, it's just they have the same amount of pawns, and it's gonna be fine. It's probably gonna be a draw.
Hi, Kaya.
Hey, well done, Jon Ludvig. I'm on the wrong side. But we have an idea. So we have Lucas, in the office. He is operations manager. He is also a great chess player. And we're going to bring Lucas in this chair right now. And I want to ask if you guys can sort of play out this game. You'll be black pieces. Lucas will be the white pieces.
Actually, we can see what makes most sense, I guess.
Well, now the game is ending, guys.
Oh.
Everything is happening now.
No!
We can't be distracted by this. Well, I think it's finishing now because...
But Lucas, you can have a seat anyways. I mean, you can be here
Lucas,
for the
come
end
in
of this.
and give your take.
Gukesh moved his queen one step back, but now the queen stopped having control of an important square in the center of the board. The pawn then moved forward to that square, wanting to make a trade with the black pawn. So everything Ding is doing is suggesting that he would be happy if the game was resolved here and ended in a draw. Gukesh had the opportunity to move forward and try and entice a queen trade. Instead, he moves his rook to the side. Another kind of weird move in my opinion. Now, because of the attack against the white pawn in the center, Ding has no choice but to capture the pawn. And now I would expect Gukesh to give a check with his queen. Is Ding in trouble here? When the queen gives a check, is this not a little bit dangerous? The queen gives a check on the king, and if the king moves to the side, then Gukesh could rush his rook forward, threatening checkmate with the queen and rook both coordinating in towards the white king in the corner. So I guess what Ding is relying on here is that if Gukesh chooses to go with the queen to the side to give a check on the king, you actually need to block the queen's diagonal as quickly as possible. And then if rook takes pawn, well, then Ding can attack the rook, but also the rook cannot move because of the king behind it. And that's a bit awkward for the black king. This game is so weird. They should have been done playing like 20 minutes ago, but Gukesh has made several half ambitious, half silly, I guess risky is
Risky, okay.
risky. He's made some risky moves.
What was the riskiest of the moves he played? Was it f5, pawn to f5? Or was it...
Yeah, I guess pawn to f5 is what started the riskiness.
Yeah, that's when I wrote this game is not over, so we're good. I was wondering if I needed to add that maybe that was a risky move, but we've already covered that. Okay, and the rook recaptures.
Oh, he doesn't even give the check.
Nope.
Okay. Rook takes.
Do you think Gukesh is still playing like somewhat for a win here?
No.
So they're just like playing it out. Pretty
Well, he must have been when he pushed the risky move.
Maybe he's just carefully testing him.
But
I
now
guess
when
so.
he retreated the queen and allowed more pawns to be traded in the middle of the board, then he's definitely aware that he's not going for the win. But now I'm wondering if Ding can go for the win, because now Ding is going to get his queen very nicely placed in the middle of the board. And the rook is kind of awkward because it cannot move because of the queen's threat down towards the king. And the rook also needs to kind of keep protection to the pawn on the opposite flank.
Oh, and there's a pin on the rook. Yeah, you'll have that on the board.
And now Gukesh goes for the queen trade. Okay. I think it's going to be over on move 41. I think they're going to make a draw offer. That's my prediction now. Ding, he goes for the trade between the queens. Gukesh has his rook still protecting the pawn on the side of the board. Ding is now going to bring out his king. Anything other than that would be weird. And now because Ding is the one to bring the king in first, he, if anyone, is the one closer to the win right now. Because he's about to move the king further forward, kicking the rook away from the protection of the black pawn on the right side. Gukesh brings his king in as well. The white king comes forward, attacks the rook. Are we going to get a repetition of moves? If the black rook now moves forward, it checks the king. If the king moves back, then we could have a back and forth. But the thing is, because of the way Gukesh is played, Ding can move his king forward, after which there's no way of defending the pawn on the side of the board. Even so, this is what Gukesh has played. Gukesh, as far as I can tell... Oh, I have the wrong placement of the rook. Okay, never mind then.
then I guess you can't go up.
Because now if you go up, the fact that I had the wrong placement of the rook was actually very significant. Because now if you go up, then you can do a counterattack on the white pawns. How did I put my rook there?
I don't know. I'm trying to keep up, and they're playing pretty quickly, and I have to be typing and explaining all the moves.
But now it's going to be a repetition of moves, because now the king is going to go back, the rook is going to defend the pawn, and then we will have a back and forth here with the black rook needing to give a check on white's king whenever the king is attacking the rook. But when the king then goes back, then the rook can also go back, keeping the black pawn safe.
All right, I've written in the app that we're going to see a repetition of moves now. This game will be a draw. And if that's wrong, we're going to blame you, Ludwig.
I'm not wrong.
What do you think the likelihood is of the repetition here? If you were to give a percentage.
100.
100, okay. And why can't they do anything else? Like what if, let's say...
okay, 99.
99, okay. Yeah, I guess if any of them tries anything else, they would just risk losing at this point.
Sorry?
I was just saying, if they try something else, they risk getting in like a slightly worse.
No, it's probably going to be a draw if they do something else as well.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Ludwig? You're saying that...
Rook to G... This is the current position. The rook has given a check on the white king.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So Ding is thinking, actually.
And that hasn't happened already. And it actually has not happened on our board that we have here. So you're seeing this in the visual. Yeah, we're seeing that being played.
And now the king steps back from Ding. The rook moves back to protect the pawn. The king moves up. And they're going back and forth in Singapore. This game is going to be over. It's not going to be a draw offer that's accepted. it is going to be the same as in game 2, the last time Ding had the white pieces. It's going to be a 3-fold repetition, the same position 3 times, and the game is then declared a draw due to lack of progress.
I'm posting that.
And the players shake hands as the position appears for the 3rd time. This World Championship match remains tied. Both of the games in which Ding has had the white pieces ends in a draw. And then they have shared 1 win each when Gukesh is white. And that's pretty exciting because the next game tomorrow is going to be one of those where Gukesh has the white pieces. And those games have been the most exciting so far.
All right, and we've updated in the app that it is a draw, a 3-fold repetition. If you don't know those rules, you can go to the app and click on that definition and you will hear it explained. But yes, like you said, Univik, no progress in the game. It's a draw.
Any final words from you, Lucas?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm a little bit disappointed that they played or made it into a draw so quickly, because we were going to do an interesting challenge here where we'd see how drawn this position is, that I would play it against you.
So you're basically you're the example of a bad player.
I'm probably not bad enough that it would
not
be
bad enough to lose this.
But it's like a good possibility to check if it's like absolutely.
Yeah, no, I
to
often
try.
say that in commentary. Even I can make a draw against Magnus here.
Yeah, exactly.
And like people say, well, you're a pretty good player, but for those not in the know, Lucas is a pretty good player too. I would have no chance winning this against him, and nor did Gukesh have a chance to win it against Ding, even though it kind of looked like he was trying there for a little moment.
All right.
Yeah.
But Lucas is going to play a big role today as Kaya leaves us because you're doing the recap with Magnus and Levi.
Am I?
Okay.
Maybe. We'll see.
Someone's
Maybe I
doing the
will.
recap.
Someone's doing it. Maybe they will do it on their own. Or maybe
Okay.
what chat? What do you think? Should we have Magnus and Levi do it on their own with that?
Well, if no one's there to kind of keep them on point, that could be a very long recap. But,
But that
I'm
might be
excited
good, right?
for it. At the very least, that's what's coming up next on this channel. The recap between with Magnus Carlsen and internet's chess teacher, Mr. Levi Rossman, Gotham Chess. But for the game itself and the live commentary, it has reached its natural conclusion as a result of the game ending in a draw. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. That's
9:50.
9:50, thank you. Central European time here in Oslo. That's, oh God, poor Americans. It's 3:50 Eastern time and a local time in Singapore. It's 4:50 p.m. And that's it for us until tomorrow. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.